crank up back to back. Oh, oh, just like that. I see a dub in my future stats. Oh, I know a place you can go. The doghouse outside my massive abode. It's lovely, it's cushy, and sometimes it's cold. Now sit and watch me get this gold. Oh, I just want it all. I just want it all.
I climbed to reach greatness. When you won the one, can't replace it. Can't take the throne, it ain't vacant. So just face it. Can't stop the rain. Can't take my crown. We on our way. The time is now. Can't stop the rain. Can't take my crown. We on our way. The time is now. Can't stop the rain.
Fortnite fam, welcome to the LCL. We've now reached that point after 3 heats, the stage that no one wants to go to, the LCL. The only thing that matters today is the Victory Royale. Consistency, your drop spot, what's going on, what you're doing, your plans. The only thing that matters is the Victory Royale. That's how we keep the FNCS dream alive, and there's only 5 spots on the line. Oh! Who's stressed? This guy. You know who's not? It's Kelly Lincoln Vivid, because they're so smart and so talented at what they do. They get to do all the hard stuff while me and you, we stress. Kelly, LCL time.
No stress here whatsoever, but you know who probably is stressed? Our 50 duos looking to finally make their way into the grand finals. We've already had 45 teams go through the heats, and Zeke, that was exciting. It was unpredictable, but if anything is going to be unpredictable, it's got to be the last chance lobby. If EU was any indication, there might be some big names dropping and some new teams coming to the top.
As a wise man once said, and that wise man, it may have been Zeke, I can't 100% remember, but it's a win and you're in. That is all that matters today. I'm excited to get into the action, and this is actually super exciting, because this is going to be the first time that we're going to be doing a little show like this. We're all joined together here. We get to watch this together, so super excited to jump into the action and see who clutches up in this last chance lobby to jump in the grand finals.
Oh boy. Well, guys, let's start talking about it. All right, let's talk about it. The only thing that matters is the VR. We've pulled stats for you guys the same way we did for the heats. We've also done so for this lobby right here. So talk us through this one. This one's a little more complex because, again, the context is the only thing that matters is that VR.
Right. So if you guys have been watching throughout the heats, we've had these session summaries at the start of every heat showcasing how many FNCS finals appearances, how many FNCS wins, and a lot of different stats. And with it being the LCL Vivid, of course, these numbers are a little bit less than what we've seen in the heats, but still some pretty notable numbers sticking out.
Absolutely right. FNCS finals appearances, that's going to take a big dip because of a lot of our big competitors on the NAC region. They're already in grand finals. They don't need to play in this lobby. We do have a single player with 2 FNCS wins competing today. I'll give you guys at home 3 total seconds to guess what it is. 1, 2, 3. It's Day. Come on. If you know, you know. One of the cool things as well, kind of jumping into this last chance qualifier, was to take a look at how many of our duos have actually stuck together from the play-ins. And there was only 22 duos that stuck together, and a bunch of changes actually happened. Of course, right, this is your last chance. You might as well go ahead and try something different. 28 duos are going to be featured here today for the first time, so it's going to be cool to see that. And then there's some stats down there about some of our teams who have picked up how many wins. And I think the highlight there for me is only 9 of our duos competing today were able to pick up 3+ wins. And when those wins matter as much as they do today, you got to imagine teams that were able to pick up multiple wins yesterday got to be feeling pretty confident coming into the competition today.
That's the difficult part, right? Again, you know, in every other context, it's like, hey, a heat, great. You don't need that VR, right? Like, the VR is great, and you could just get a game 1, and that's it. Your next stop is finals. Everything's cool and chill. Or you play through consistency, right? As long as we're being consistent, hitting high placements and elims, we'll make it through. But now, Kelly, it doesn't matter. You could hit 1 million second places in a row with 50 eliminations every single game. If you don't get the VR, the run's over.
Yeah, we were already talking about how different heats are with, like, when it comes to the meta and the strategy that goes into the competition. So I can only imagine, Zeke, how different it is going to be for the LCL.
Oh man, my stress levels are rising quickly. Oh, okay. You know what? Why don't we go on our casters? Let me take a break here. Okay, let's go meet up with MDF and Jacob PR.
Thank you, Zeke. And yeah, Jacob, I was really starting to think about this. The LCQ allowed players to kind of make these new groups form up together. What's your take? Should duos even be thinking about breaking apart coming into the LCL?
I think it's just a matter of feeling. Vivid mentioned the matter of returning teams to this one. I look at one of those threats in Veer. They play 16th, mere points out from actually booking their ticket to the finals from here. And then you talk about players that are kind of split up and returning back to a situation like this. You have Evan, you have Liquid. Both of these guys got a second place yesterday and a 16th and 18th on the respective leaderboards throughout the weekend. Now they're paired up with new teammates. So with this being a win and you're in format, I'm going to be looking at almost everybody here in the lobby. Who is going to send towards that high ground? Because most of our wins throughout the heats came from the high ground.
Yeah, and of course, you saw a bunch of clutches, so the heats were definitely interesting. It was no surprise that we were going to have great competition coming out of heats. Coming into the LCL, I mean, it's just going to be a toss-up at this point. There are still some notable names that, of course, our desk is going to break down. Plenty of contested drops now as we get to see the continuation of some of the favorite drops go toe-to-toe. So I'll leave it to Zeke and the rest of the crew to go and break those down.
Appreciate you guys. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to talk about. So as we start to kind of think about the lobby, first, why don't we kind of take a look at the drop map and kind of highlight two very strong POIs that are also going to be contested. Guys, talk to me about this. Obviously, again, context, LCL, we just need a VR. Being contested, good or bad right now?
Bad. Usually it's pretty bad. Landing in Wonky Land, obviously, there is so much drama going beyond NA Central that would be just so apropos for there to be a little bit of contestation here as well between Day, the team or the player that Vid was saying, the only person to get an FNCS finals win here, going up against Akko's team. But it being Wonky Land right now, I'm wondering if we're going to be actually seeing some fighting off spawn, Vivid.
Yeah, this LCL is interesting because you have all of these top 45 teams from the region that usually claim these very strong POIs. They're already qualified. They're not going to be playing in the competition today. So it kind of opens these strong POIs up like Wonky, like Sandy. And when they do get opened up, there's a bunch of duos that want to go there. So much so, they keep changing their minds. They keep looking over at the map, who's going to be landing where, and it changes every single moment. I think now we actually have 3 teams going to Wonky. So that'll be a big surprise when we actually jump into the lobby today. Sandy, I think we've kind of settled around the 3 teams as well. But yeah, in a format where it matters, right? You only have 5 opportunities to go ahead and get the win. You, of course, want to utilize all 5 of those. But if you go down, if you're fighting off spawn, it's just in the odds, you're probably going to go down early in some of these games. So I feel like a big edge to any of our teams that are going to be uncontested throughout the day. But that's just kind of how Fortnite has been since the dawn of it in general, right? Since competitive kind of started. But we'll have to see if they can kind of clutch up a couple of games to do it. You can actually do it in this format.
And we did see some teams during heats actually also contest some of our bigger names in hopes that once they did go through, because same thing with heats, if you get the win, you auto-qualify through, that those POIs would be left open. But then again, as we saw through heats, as soon as the bigger name left, regardless if there was a team already there, more people were willing to go and change up their drop spot, which I think we're going to see today as well.
Yeah, desperate times call for desperate measures, right? Suddenly you say, oh, Wonkyland has 1 less duo. Maybe it has the same amount because we've decided to go there in this random game, right? Like, things could change moment to moment. Again, we saw in EU, there was names, big names, high-profile duos that did not make it. These lobbies are incredibly chaotic. So we'll have to see the adaptation these players make from game to game. Oh, man, it's going to be exciting. Let's take a look at this lobby list now. Let's highlight a couple of standout duos we think could walk away with a victory royale. As we bring up this initial page, let's start with Tyler and Chance. So again, every question I ask is going to be through the same lens. Can this duo get themselves a victory royale?
Now, I think if we look how they performed during heats, getting 19th place, they are going to be landing over in North Hollywood, or whatever it's called, my goodness, Boulevard, where they're going to be uncontested. And they were actually contested during heats where they got 19th place and going up against Paper and Resi, who only got 12th. So they've already showcased that they have an opportunity to perform well even when they are contested. So the fact that they're uncontested right now, definitely one of the more experienced duos out of everyone competing here today. I think that they definitely have a chance, pun intended, to get a victory royale.
Boo.
Yeah, it would be. Kelly will always keep us on our toes here on NAC. And Chance and Tyler will keep the rest of the lobby on their toes as well. Coming into today, they picked up 3 victory royales yesterday, and you got to be feeling pretty confident. Like I mentioned, there was only 9 teams able to actually do that, and they're going to be one of them. If you were kind of paying attention to those highlights, a majority of those are going to be from the first game that they played yesterday, where they were able to actually pick up that first place with 28 eliminations. If you're kind of paying attention to how they were playing, that was from the high ground. Obviously, we know high ground wins games in Fortnite, but everybody else in the lobby knows that as well. So how is high ground going to look throughout the day? Are Tyler and Chance going to be comfortable up there, or they're going to be contested? I don't know.
Oh, I mean, that was Kelly's advice over the weekend, right? It's just look up, make sure you're looking up. Don't let players be up there on high ground for free. We'll see, Vivid. Let's bring up that lobby list again, and let's talk about another duo. We're highlighting here Cynics and Cirque. So, obviously, again, can we get a victory royale? You know, Viv, you just mentioned the Tyler and Chance were uncontested, but you know, Kelly looks like this duo actually might be contested. So again, as we mentioned earlier, that's bad.
Yeah, it's a little bit of the opposite of what I saw from Cynics, who was actually competing during the heats. And he was originally uncontested over in this northeastern corner, but now going to be landing over in Painted Palms, going up against Okarun and Rick. But Cynics and Cirque, they are a new team. Cynics has already proven himself to be able to make it into heats. So I definitely think that there is the knowledge there, the understanding of what they need to be able to make it into the end game. But now with the added frustrations of being contested, definitely not where they want to be.
I set myself up nicely for this one, guys. I'm not going to lie. Tyler and Chance, I talked about them. Are they going to be comfortable up on height? Cynics and Cirque, another team with 3 victory royales. Those highlights right there, where were they at, guys? They were on the high ground.
Low ground.
Not everybody can play a win from the high ground. They're going to be contesting each other. This is the last chance for some of these teams to make it into the grand finals. I feel like we're going to have an absolute brawl in the high ground, but sometimes NA's kind of surprises, Zeke, where we do kind of look up and there's just like nobody up there. I hope we don't get the day. I hope we get a lot of action up there.
Dude, you just know this junk's going to be chaotic. It's about to get wicked over here in LCL. Let's bring up that lobby list one last time, but this time let's flip on over to the second page. So we got to kind of look at the initial set of duos. As we flip on over, we've kind of touched on a couple different things, but let's actually talk about experience and talk about Scare and Osid. So these guys actually have a lot of experience, right? But I guess the question becomes, can they translate all of that experience that they have over the lobby into a win?
I think for anyone that's been keeping up with North American Central over the chapter, they're a little surprised to see Osid and Scare having to go through the last chance qualifier, the last chance lobby. Because if you look at their performances, they're consistently getting top 10 in our Div Cup finals. In fact, out of all 50 duos that are competing here today, they are the only team to get a Div Cup finals win, showcasing that even going up against the big names of North American Central, they're still able to walk away with a win. So out of all the teams we're seeing here today, I would be the most shocked out of this duo not going through.
Yeah, I mean, they just look so good. They topped the leaderboard yesterday, kind of coming into today in first place with 460 points. Again, another one of those 9 teams to pick up those 3 victory royales. And outside of those victory royales, I mean, their match history looked incredible. They made it to the end game in all 8 of the matches that they were able to play. If we're only playing 5 games today, and this team can make it to the end game in all 5 of them, if they even need to play 5 of these games today, then you got to imagine their odds, their chances to actually win one of those games, if they've made it to the end game of every single one, it's going to be pretty high.
You guys have got me both excited and scared, right? Again, we just have 5 games. As we get ready with just a couple moments here before we get in, how does this LCL change the mindset of these players, right? Because again, consistency just doesn't matter, right? We need that win if we want to keep the dream alive.
It is desperation. We've heard it said throughout the day, and we're going to hear it as well, because these teams do not care what the normal meta is. Everything that they've been practicing going into the heats, going into the play-ins is going to be thrown out the door, because this is a different lobby than what they are used to playing and seeing. And honestly, that just gets me all the more ready for it.
5 duos. We got to figure out who's going to be. One last stat before we jump into the game. 62 players competing today are without a grand finals appearance in an FNCS. Kind of been the talk of the town lately. Experience versus the new bloods. Who's going to come out on top today? Gotta see.
Oh man, it is that time. Well, with that being said, games are ready. So MDF, Jacob PR, over to you.
You know, some may call this the last chance lobby. I'm looking at the entire day of redemption because there are teams that missed out on the opportunity to play in heats. There are teams that got 16th place. They got 2nd place in actual games. And there are teams that newly formed together just for this. This is truly an exciting feeling. And the implications are so much, Mancha, because you not only miss out on Major 1, but you miss out on the Summit LAN as well.
Yeah, that's right. There's so much more to play for now than we've ever had for a Major 1 as far as what's on the line. I mean, who would love to get a trip to Germany, of course, is playing that LAN event. Everybody here. That's why they're trying so hard. So let's see it, because game number 1 sounds like it's ready.
This is it, where only the win matters today, each and every game. Essentially, when it comes to a leaderboard, resets. The biggest thing as well is anytime a team wins out of their drop spot, they already advance to the grand finals, and their drop spot then opens up, which leaves a lot of thinking and strategy to do throughout the day. And Vivid, Kelly, Zeke, they said this might be double contested, but what about a triple contested fight?
Yeah, this is crazy. You know, Day is obviously someone who's been around the block. He's done this time in, time out again, but he has found himself on the losing side of his general performances lately. So for him to be contested and in this kind of last opportunity now is going to be much more difficult. I mean, Jacob, we could point back to any stat book, any stat history. There are clear correlations to being, of course, contested and whether or not you can perform well in a tournament. However, this is just a win and you're done situation. So I do think the best will float to the top, and those that are destined to take their win will get in here and get it done.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the silver lining of a format like this is, yeah, okay, you get contested, or maybe you go down off spawn in a way that you didn't know. There's no leaderboard. There's no consistency. It is a fresh start in that next game. So you got to be able to have that mental toughness to be able to bounce back from any moment, no matter what does go down. Noah plays Civ. We saw Noah plays throughout the heats before. He's changing up not only his teammate, but his drop spot as well from the backside of this mountain. And this is one of those POIs. We've seen plenty of teams throughout the weekend not only pick up good placements, but big wins from this side of the map.
I mean, you know, Oliver OG tried to play this, obviously, going into his heats. It didn't quite work out being contested that last game. Unfortunately, ended up turning things around against him. But now, let's see what Jeff can do here. Like to see it so far. Good shot. However, Noah plays. Does have still a little bit of gas in the tank. So does Civ here.
Just got to be careful here. We already know for long fights like this, invite third-party players on over. And I already see a third party coming up in the distance. Sky and Sia. They're just already getting some tags in the distance, third-partying this. Whether they get the eliminations or not, you know, their main goal is to just accumulate that storm surge. In a lobby like this, where it is a win and you're in format, I could imagine maybe, especially game number 1, things slowing down and surge being a primary factor of how you get to rotate around the maps, especially if you do get that max pull early on.
Yeah, Hefe Cyrus is seen rotating out there. Don't want to, of course, get third party this early. QPs and Maka Flow. Oh no, shot from the side from Press. Comes in, cleans things up. Just like that was a contested drop here. The Riptide ends up being favorable for them. All in all, it seems like, although they might have taken a bit of the exchange there, they do come out way ahead here. So this is great. Not too bad of a start.
Yeah, those are the kind of starts you want. Build that confidence up, especially at a POI like Riptides. Depending on where the zone goes, you can kind of rotate to the slower sides, whether if it's riding the western edge or the southern part of the map. Kind of gives you a different amount of options here. Angel and Noxy. And Noxy is an Angel, another team that's forming just for this. Just trying to put it together here. They get Humble Hills uncontested, and this is a POI for Noxy. There is a lot of familiarity here. Just because he has a new teammate by his side, I don't think that he loses any bit of confidence there. just like Jargu, Carillion, both of these guys in separate moments. One inconsistency in terms of Jargu, and then Carillion with all the Roji you mentioned. They had 2 different chances to try to make it in the finals. Unfortunately, they did fall short, but now they're landing over a different POI, Sandy Strip. This is kind of known as one of the top 3 POIs in the game. It is going to be contested this time, so I don't think you'll get as much freedom as you normally would, but hey, it's better than nothing.
As long as they can keep their head on a swivel here and not get rolled up on, they should be just okay. One of the better drops, but just a second here. Day back into the action over at the Wonky Land. Again, this is where they were landed, fully contested. They end up going north, it seems, possibly to try to find a little bit of extra loot, possibly try to ambush a team, and it does seem to be working in their favor so far. Big shot there following up on the Chaos Reload. And Slate's already dropped here. All right, so Storm kind of assisting in the elimination here, and then there goes the follow-up. So the finish is good. You know, you would think being triple contested, they would not have gone straight into another fight. However, it seems like this ends up working very much the way they wanted it to.
Yeah, and I think it comes off maybe a little bit of championship experience, some would say, because that was a triple contested fight, like you said. It looked like early on they were going to rotate south, but they beeline towards the north. That's just map awareness. There was already a contested fight up there on that side of the map. They let it finish, and they completely interrupted it to win the fight at the end of the day, and that's going to be how they're going to get some extra loot from a triple contested POI. You got to look back at the Storm Surge as well. Those are huge amounts of damage that they're able to get while not taking as much. You guys don't know, Storm Surge, damage dealt minus damage taken is your overall net damage, and that was your overall position on the Storm Surge leaderboard.
Yeah, much different dynamic now, so getting or dealing damage and not really forcing fights is, I would say, probably the most ideal way to play if you want to play it safe. And for a lot of people here, this is their first times, again, entering in and out of these Heats lobbies, coming from the Heats. And so for the majority of the lobby, when you look at the overall stats, I mean, they've never been in a last chance qualifier, let alone a last chance, you know, lobby like this to push your way towards a finals.
Vibes and Havoc, another new team to this mix. Both of them did play in Heats. Just unfortunately, they kind of, just like so many others, just fell victim of not being able to kind of clutch it out. But they do get this last chance here. And for Sia and SkyMay, you see they're over 450 above the damage threshold. And I got to imagine, since they're making their way over towards Latte Landing, they're trying to keep as many of their big HP heals in their inventory. That's the splashes that you do see. That's the pepperoni or slapperoni pizza that you do see in their inventory as well. They're just going to be trying to scavenge for bandages, med kits. That way they can try to save those as long as possible. And if they do venture on over towards Latte Landing, there's that long pad. You combine that with the fizz and the shockwaves, you can go further and farther. So I'm not too stressed about them making it to zone just yet.
Yeah, you can see clearly they have a strategy there in place that's working out very well. Rain, Neck on the other side here, just hanging out. Middle map at the moment, north of South Studios. Meanwhile, Noah plays back into another fight, so he just can't seem to catch a break. FA and crew end up disengaging before, but you stick around, you end up finding out, I guess, and it's really not even too far from where the first fight started, so they really haven't even gotten to kind of get off the start line here, it seems like.
You can see why Hefe was trying to disengage already. Probably didn't have any HP to regenerate because of how long they were actually in the storm. They tried to shockwave to a mending machine. They end up running into a whole nother team. They go down here in game number 1. And that's the thing that starts to play on you mentally because of how long that fight took and the fact that both teams survived. Maybe going into next game, you might want to play it to a straight 50-50, get the elimination, which kind of increases your best chance to win the game.
You see here Pods and Phenom right now using an overdrive, get that boosted stamina here for the rotates. But yeah, to your point too, I'm thinking that's a really smart strategy. Hold the mending machine, let the teams in the storm kind of do their thing, and then you have this nice clean ambush. So it's probably not going to work more than once, but pulling out the big strats here in game 1 is definitely the way to do it. Meanwhile, Flappy here finds Amplify. Talk about lurk plays, just waiting behind the wall there, right camera holding. They find a quick elimination there. No teammate just yet to back him up. You know, Drew, Chris kind of listening in as well, seeing what all happened here, but Flappy's moving in. He's on the hunt, but Loris has to defend himself in a great tag here.
And Just has to be careful. He does have the shields. He just needs the time. Does have Liquid to kind of bait and switch, take a little of the pressure, get it off his back while he puts as much aggression down as possible. But he has to be careful. Third parties are in the distance. It can change things in the blink of an eye. As Flappy's now healed up. Now he's going to continue on the chase, close off the whole other angle. Back of his teammate. They do have the pressure, trying to spray into the box. Damage is going to continue to fire off, land on the Lorzies until he's finally going down. But no, he's able to escape again. 1 HP in a dream, but the third party shots are now pouring in. Flappy trying to protect himself from that being the case. The Lorzies is just buying so much time here, and he might be able to survive if the third parties continue to crash.
I can respect it, though. He's putting his back towards Chris's team that was just holding that other base not too far off. Look, they're recognizing, hey, we're in the sandwich here. I'm not sure if we want to finish this, but Loris ends up exposing himself. Flappy again gets shot by that third-party team. They're probably thinking about engaging in. However, nothing too big happening just yet, so everyone here is going to be content with chipping away at damage. Essentially, the only ones on the losing side here are really Flappy and Liquid that have to finish this fight quick. There it is. Finally, cost them a good amount of metal and whatnot, but we're still early enough in the game, they should be able to bounce back.
Yeah, I like the way you mentioned that, you know, Flappy was taking a ton of damage. So even though they were able to secure both of those eliminations, what does that do towards their Storm Surge? Because it wasn't as clean as they would hope. Jump on board Chance, Tyler haven't had to rotate far from where they actually drop, which is the north side of Battlewood Boulevard. Uncontested this time around as they quickly make their way in towards the zone. The southern edge, a lot of time to look back. CR, he's able to get the elimination onto one. You can see Day trying to crash on the other side, close off the different angles. He ends up in the box, and they end up cleaning that elimination. Now they're on two, and this is where you start to think, with the battles lasting as long as they have over towards Wonky Land, do you continue to rotate through here as a part of your plan?
At this point, we're just going to have to feel it out, see what they manage to do as far as positioning. There'll be some of the late ones to the zone right now. Start to purchase zone number 5, but take a look at it. The way it kind of played out originally. Here it is. They just catch them completely off guard there out in the open. And it sets them up for success now. But, you know, one thing to think about, normally we're celebrating like earning points, obviously come to mid-game. But none of that matters, right? If you are taking away, actively working against your positioning to play for an in-game, I mean, you're going to have a much bigger problem. So got to respect somewhat of the passive hold right now from players like Electro and everyone else here that's positioned up. They're just trying to make it to mid and end games. And hopefully the way they find their damage is from late teams rotating in.
Yeah, it's like a little bit of a different mind game because of the format switch up to where you're happy getting 1 or 2 eliminations. You're getting 3 points per elimination for that, especially having played LCQ Opens yesterday to make it to this point. A lot of teams like the W Key get their big elimination games and their wins out of the way early. This time around, it might be more beneficial, just like you see threats in Veer here. They're not necessarily worried about any eliminations. They just are worried about getting to zone very, very quickly, trying to beat as many teams as possible, and then accumulate that surge. But you got to be careful. A chop is coming in. Tyler and Chance from underneath, trying to get a huge surprise on threats in Veer. Luckily for them, they caught it at the last second.
Just because they're 22 below, make it even worse now as the shots end up exchanging back and forth. So whatever they were earning was taken right back and then some on the other side. It's not looking good for Anonia. Yep, here comes the shots from behind. And, you know, you win some, you lose some. This time, Waffle Joe, Aiden showcased that they're just a little bit more prepared here coming into game number 1. And not only that, they get gifted with the zone just right up here. So this is an excellent spot to be in, finding your damage, finding a huge refresh and opportunity here. Look at that, even leaving behind essentially an abundance of metal. We could be seeing what is going to be the catalyst for a game 1 win for Waffle Joe.
Yeah, entirely too early, but if they have all that extra metal, they might be able to utilize it, try to make the early signs for the high ground, especially if you look at where the terrain is now. If we continue to move towards the north or even the eastern edge, mountains will be in place. So think of 2-3 steps ahead might be the name of the game here as we jump on board Skymay and Sia. These guys haven't had to rotate far throughout the game so far, from the top side of the mountain to where they're at now, so they've really been able to utilize their positioning, but you see the whole different story on the other side, whether you're 500 below or simply 15. When Storm Surge activates every 7 seconds, 25 damage. Luckily for them, they were able to get 47 above the threshold, but they know that can change in a moment's notice, especially without any builds, without any resources. They need to start thinking about what's plan B from here.
Yeah, plan B is find a machine or find something to get yourself some white heals, because this is looking really rough. Just quite some time, a little bit of distance to get there, but Dark Dominion, look how many teams are landing on this southwestern portion, right? This really, you know, when you start looking at the map, look how many people are alive right now. You know, more experienced teams or lobbies typically will have a slightly better spread. But when you start getting into people that are playing nervous, first time to finals, right? Not necessarily experienced with set lobbies, you start to see these really weird, heavily congested zones. And I think there's going to be the trend for the entire day today. So this is just a small sample size of what's to come. And look at this, Jacob, it's pushing straight up the hill. This is going to be very favorable for Noah and Civ if they can just survive the surge at this point, because they're one of the earliest ones now to take some high ground.
Yeah, now they and a couple other teams have to start to make that decision. Is this position good enough? Do I rotate when the zone opens up? Because you were talking about Dark Dominion being stacked. It moving towards the north means the south edge of this next zone is going to be stacked as can be, and it's going to make it hard for teams like Electro and Ult to make their way in safely. They're 160 above the damage threshold, so at least they have a little bit of a cushion to work with. But you could see shockwaving in the open territory like this with other players being on your rotation. It just kind of means it's a guarantee you should be one to take damage, and that's why you see even Threats and Veer trying to build themselves a little bit of a cushion, wait for the zone to force them to make a play in. But down goes the Fizz, the Shockwave. They need that extra bump so that way they can close the distance in no time at all.
Yeah, I was like, well, this is going to cost them a lot being this late. They will likely have to do as much as they can to get as maximum distance possible here. Look at this LK, even though he is by himself, he does find a knock right there. Straight into the box he goes. There's another shot coming in from an opposing team onto that down body. He might be able to clutch this one out. However, the surge is forcing him to stop and heal for now. And look at that. Another team ends up slipping below, so it's not over yet. Ends up finding the team just in time as the pickup goes through, and unfortunately couldn't get that closeout there.
Yeah, that would have been a huge elimination. The Siphon to keep him alive, but he turns back, but he's literally 3 HP. He gets ticked down. Bubba has been eliminated again, but hopefully it was a distraction for his teammate to be able to get out alive, because whether you win the game as a solo or a duo, it all means the same. You are going to grand finals. Let's jump on board Sandman and Nut. Nut is one of those players, when it comes to consistency, Monster, he was right there, just outside of the bubble in his heats. Found a new teammate, hopefully found some new confidence here. They are above the damage threshold, and when it comes to far zone pulls, it moves on over towards the east. So for the majority of the lobby, it isn't as drastic as that last one.
Yeah, plenty of terrain differences to come here. Noah, Civ, 8 below now, so these are some pretty important tags. They find a few there. That's going to keep them in the game here, buy them a little bit of room. Probably ease up some pressure, and I'm sure there's going to be more opportunities, opening up. There's a lot of players that still have to get up off this high ground ledge, and it just doesn't get better for Civ and Noah. They have clean lines of sights here, and everyone coming in. Look at that. Excellent job for them. Just, again, staying in the game, remaining competitive. Meanwhile, you get Threats and Veer, right? Below the surge, fine vibes in the follow-up on the teammate. You know, they would have liked to get the finish on the down body first for that extra damage, but you can't be a chooser when you're begging for damage, right? So getting a quick little elite elim right there, getting that refresh is definitely going to be excellent.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes it's just like being on base while you're playing baseball. You have a split second to make that decision. Threats knows it's probably better to get the damage, but you have to keep on going, especially now they fall once again below the damage threshold by 72. One big shot, but they know it's not going to be safe. Even with that elimination there, they are still below the damage threshold, and it is now active surge. Every 7 seconds, 25 damage. They jump up just a little bit, but they're still 36 below. You can see they have no extra heals. Threats has no choice but to go, but he's finding nothing. Just scraps of loot left behind. He has one more tick that he can take of the actual Storm Surge before he's fully eliminated here, and it leaves all the pressure onto Veer. He can take 2 of those ticks, but he needs 36 damage, down to 1 HP. Tries to get in the box, but it doesn't matter. That's Scare and Osid that end the run of Threats and Veer.
So unfortunate, because, you know, Threats had an option right there. He came across so much extra heals as well. You know, he's thinking in his mind, can I stop for this? No, I just got to get this shot off. But he couldn't do it in time. Meanwhile, Noah and Civ, it seems like their stars are starting to align, although they were underneath that big pressure. Civ is turning online, but no, Noah caught in the crossfire here while rotating it through, and no, they got the pressure now coming in from the opposing duo here as they're looking, but I don't think they realize Noah's down. That came from a different player, so they hunt Civ down as if he's a solo because he initiated that fight, and it could have just gone any other way had Noah not fallen there sooner. But look at this, Jacob. High ground starting to take identity here.
Yeah, and it's kind of these mountain ranges from the Frigid Fortress, especially if it continues to go towards the south. So got to really watch your material count here and plan accordingly. And that's why you see Kaz is Degen. They're using the backside of zone as a blessing here, letting it push every other team towards the north side and the front side of the zone overall. But they bide their time. They have the damage. They don't necessarily need much. And you look at high ground right now. QK is the one that's trying to solidify it, but he is getting contested by one. They get the knock. That leaves Sia by himself. He's in a 1v2 situation, battling for the high ground. He needs this here because his teammate is already down. He gets pushed down low to the low ground, 1 HP, but at least he survived.
Contrap TK put up a good enough fight. You know, TK is also one of the teammates, it seems like, who switched up his duo coming into this, so if he manages to pull a win out now, that'd be incredible stuff. Drew and Chris, we saw from contested Sandy to now 6 eliminations and approaching the top 10 here, are starting to set themselves up for success. They just found that nice refresher, but the high ground is still gonna be king here. You can see Saya thinking about going up, but Stiff and Eulogy cleaning up house here on the teams that are lurking on the edge of the zone. This is the dangerous spot to be in, but for Stiff and Eulogy, I mean, it's not looking too hot right here. They're starting to run out of mats.
Yeah, and those up above, they cannot fall asleep now. You see Snakes going up. Khan went down to try to reconnect, leaving QK by himself in a 1v1 situation, but Snakes, he's not backing down. This is exactly what we wanted to see, the battle for the high ground, but QK's bouncing around. You gotta wonder what the material count is for them because they've held it for so long. Now in come Kaz is out of nowhere.
Oh, no.
Everybody is sending height, but Kaz, as he gets dropped, Khan gets actually knocked. That gives a 2v1 advantage to Degen, and Kaz is on height.
Solid good for QK. He's in a block, but he finds Kaz's and then follows up, but no, Degen just knew better there. Line just shot up and hits the tags that matter. Can he actually save Kaz's? It's a huge potential, very much a possibility right now. It does look like he's going to get the pickup. This could be a Cinderella finish for Degen and Kaz's right now. This is worth the damage. We all know it. But no, as it happens, someone recognizes something's wrong up top. It's Angel who comes in alongside Noxy. Noxy, of course, hits that overdrive to the high ground here. He's just scouting now, and they have downloaded enough information to see that they are the kings of height here.
Yeah, but be careful. Be careful. Oh, you got Osin and Scare in the backside of zone. They are tanking it to try to catch any team off guard. For Noxy and Angel, they don't have the builds to hold on to it. You even got Jargu down below, still trying to control the entire front side of the zone, but Noxy has finally been challenged along with Angel. They've contested the high ground. They wasted all their builds. They're hoping it's enough. They're going blow for blow, but Noxy does go down. Osin going up against Angel. They clean cut the eliminations, but one of them goes down. Osin's now by himself. Most of the lobby here is solos.
And this is crazy. I saw Saya still alive, by the way, going for high ground. Meanwhile, Carillion and Jargu just listening to what's going down. And they haven't been able to find the refresher all this time. Only sitting on 7 material. There's still a duo right here. The right camera, Pete couldn't quite respond fast enough there. And it's Flurry, but no mats. Everyone here is essentially out of material. And the low ground team, Carillion and Jargu, the experienced players are just biding their time, playing patiently. And meanwhile, it's Drew up top who has to do the impossible.
Yep, 1v2 situation. Just in case has the chug, but without knowledge of what they have down below, he's not sure it's going to be enough. Gets Cone, tries to block one off. Drew's following the zone, just trying to wait for it to open up, give him any opportunity, but he spots in 1v1. One opportunity against Jargu, but that opportunity comes and goes. He gets a good amount of damage. Jargu trying to stay alive. Drew is controlling the zone, but it's not going to be enough. Carillion and Jargu, after their heats, they get redemption and they go to finals.
It was very, very close for a second there. I thought they were going to be able to do it there, Jacob, but nah, in the end, of course, the duo manages to stand strong and wait for it to go their way, right? A team that, of course, has plenty of experience and arguably are, of course, some of the bigger name vets here. Already now, though, Jacob, punching their way out here.
Yeah, Yeah, that's really big right there. We saw Kerillian get second place with Oliver. We saw Jargu barely miss the cut when it comes to consistency. Now they have nothing to worry about for the rest of the week. Zeke, what do you think about game 1?
A sigh, Jacob, a sigh of relief, because finally the chaos that these players must have been feeling, finally they kind of see the calm in the storm, right? The center of that storm, and they walk away with a victory royale. And as a duo, Kelly, Viv, I feel like that is going to be what gets a lot of these duos that W, right? Making sure they can both stay alive. It's so much harder to be a solo, but even harder to be a solo in the context of the LCL.
Yeah, 100%. Being able to just stay alive, stay hip to hip. It doesn't matter if you don't have eliminations. We saw Jargu running the low ground. Usually on our teams, we see them have a lot of eliminations when that happens. But that is, of course, not the case for the Last Chance lobby. Jargu, Kerillian played that so well, so smart, while so many other teams were fighting in the high ground and eliminating each other. They stayed low, slow, and cool.
It's going to be one of those teams that just formed. Really, within the last couple of days, Jacob kind of called it out right there. Oliver, OG, and Kerillian, they made a run in the heats. They got that second place game. They were one placement off of winning the game and going through the grand finals. Didn't work out, so they went ahead and split up. Jargu in heat number 1, he was 17th place, just 2 placements away from bumping into that top 10 on the consistency leaderboard. Broke up with Jays. These two guys came together and they win the first game of the Last Chance lobby. What an incredible storyline there. And I mean, we got some questions answered right there from the low ground as well. Even more, the more hype.
Yeah, I mean, next steps for this duo is like, okay, we're now in a finals lobby. Where are we dropping? What's our plan of attack? How are we doing this? You know, they only have a handful of days to figure that out, but ultimately we will be seeing them in the finals of Major number 1. That is so crazy. Now, of course, 4 more games left to go, 4 more VRs to be had. So for now, a break. When we return, we'll prepare ourselves for game number 2.
Watch me arrive.
thought I was okay. I thought I was fine. Stress still through the roof. But in case you were just joining in and you missed out on game number 1, Jargu, Kerillian got themselves the Victory Royale out of game 1, which means they're moving on to finals this weekend. And of course, welcome back to the LCL, where only the Victory Royale matters, nothing else. Game 1, quite chaotic, Kelly. And as we kind of started to talk about before we kind of kicked off the competition, there's a lot of context to the LCL and like how players play, right? When you're coming into like a heat, you're like, okay, this is a heat, this is the lobby, this is my POI, and you kind of start to form plans. But Kelly, with an LCL, you ain't got time. There's no time. There's no way to form plans.
Well, it's funny. You could watch each team that took height in that game. You could see the strategy that they had in their mind. You had the team that went for high ground early and, we're going to build a big height so no one can try and steal it away from us. And unfortunately, that did not go their way. And then you saw the team that was waiting in Storm to use their shockwave grenade to go up and try and steal. And they did that, but then that didn't work out as well. And then you had Scare and Osid that waited for the final moments until Zone 11 to steal high. And then that didn't work. You know, unfortunately, when it comes to the last chance lobby, you can have all the best strategies in your back pocket. But when there's a full duo down below Vivid, there's just only so much you can do.
Yeah, I mean, it was a tough break. I think the amount of height switches we got that game had to be 10 plus for sure. And a lot of the opportunities were actually coming from solos trying to do some sort of last ditch effort after losing their teammate at some point during that game. But yeah, I'm happy that you kind of talked about Osid and Scare because I did want to kind of talk about them. It looked like everybody during that game that was going for high ground, they were kind of just like going up and just trying to do some like Hail Mary plays. But I think Osid and Scare had one of the most like formulaic looking sort of strategies. You were kind of calling them out for kind of sitting in the storm, or Jacob was calling them out for sitting in the storm and kind of waiting for a good opportunity. Yeah, they ended up getting high ground, but it did not last long just because of how contested it ended up being. And Kelly, I think it's important that everybody at home does not forget we've got threats, we've got Veer in this last chance lobby as well. I feel like the spotlight is on threats here, right?
I mean, yeah, there's definitely a spotlight on them, but for them to have 4 eliminations by Zone 8 and to still be below Storm Surge just showcases, again, that is another factor that is going to completely change in the last chance lobby.
You know what's even crazier, right? If we look back at Jargu and Kerillian, these guys were landing Sandy Strip, right? At the start of the show, we called out that in Wonky Land is kind of these hot spots, right? It was triple contested, but now with a duo out, it's a 2v2 over at Sandy, so the question becomes, for now, like, are we going to think some other duos were like, well, there's only 2 duos there, and maybe it's worth swapping up for a game and trying to go for it, Kelly? I don't know.
I mean, you can't make the argument being, it's triple contested. No one can win from a triple contested POI because someone just did. So, Vivid, I don't know. Maybe someone will try and land over there.
Yeah, it's going to be super tough to do as well. I also saw, we kind of threw out the name Threats there. Some of our pros that we are very familiar with. D-Gen as well, right? Made a play for the high ground in that end game as well. So obviously we're kind of talking about how the early game is getting a little crazy, but the end game was also super crazy. We were kind of wondering if we were going to get an NAC in this last chance shot, but that was going to be a little bit jittery, right? A little bit too nervous to go for the high ground, and there was going to be kind of nobody up there. Nah, everybody kind of came to play today. That is for sure.
Yeah, D-Gen and Kaz, also another team that tried to go for that deep storm play to go for height. And it did work out for them for a second. In fact, Kaz was actually even knocked and D-Gen was able to bring him back up. But we heard the casters. Obviously, if there's very little movement going up on height, something's going wrong and everyone's going to look up and see what's going on.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how much action was going down on high ground in game 1, right? It feels like maybe we need to pull back. Like, how do we know when too much is too much, right? If we're all going for high ground, none of us are winning. So we'll have to see how players look to adapt with 4 games left to go. Again, only the Victory Royale matters. And that's what all these players are looking to try and claim. Now, with that being said, I'm getting word game 2 is ready. We'll see you guys after this one. So, casters, over to you.
I got to say, man, Zeke's right. being triple contested, winning a game is just something I did not expect. One of the first things we talked about, Jacob, was like how that is the impossible, but hey, they've done it. And with the pressure of just being a fresh signing too for Jargu to Gen G, I got to give you some extra credit. So now that we're starting to gear up here for game number 2, I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing how it's going to play out. Clearly, anything can happen, and it's also very clear that the veterans, Jacob, are coming to play.
Yeah, and I think, you know, we saw the whole lobby kind of slow down there in game number 1, where there was very, very little opportunities as the game went on to get free surge. You kind of had to wait for those max pulls to come in, be one of the first teams to rotate, and use that as an opportunity to look back. Will the meta continue to change as the day goes on? We'll find out, because game 2 is ready.
It's your last chance to make your way to finals. We all know what is on the line here and now, but the real question is can you step up and perform when it matters most? Obviously, we know with this type of battle bus, this is going to make that North fight extremely serious, but places we want to keep an eye out on are, of course, going to continue to be Wonky Land, the Sandy Strip right now, that things are going to kind of ease up there now. It doesn't get any simpler, though, right? Teams are still very much contested at the best drops.
Just got to be careful when you're contesting, depending on the bus path for Wonky Land, because you can get tagged out of the sky. We're already seeing it here. But Scuffies goes down to Deshawn. Him and CR get the first drop onto 1, leaving Day by himself. And it does look like they are going to look to play aggressive here. This is their real opportunity, but Day was able to find some shields trying to back up, but only the Thunderburst in his inventory. Timing is of the essence for it to actually be a 1v1, so he has to go. He gets the green light. A couple of missed bursts. He's trying to figure out where he went, but help comes in, and down goes Day and Scuffies. They have been eliminated here from game number 2.
And just so I understand, this is the Day that was once a champion, correct?
Yep.
And now we're looking at Deshawn, the CR from the WIG. So newcomers coming in, kind of putting in the work here. Just to look at it from the other POV, you can see this all comes down to having the better drop, though, right? Like just getting vested right there, having the gun, having pretty much being prepared. You end up winning the exchange.
Yeah, that's kind of what happens when a Wonky Land type POI does get triple contested, because typically if it's just regular 2 teams, you can kind of split it before you go head to head. But now that a team is far north, forcing the 2 teams down below to fight for their loot, that's just kind of what happens. Bouncing all over the map here, jumping on board. Riptides or Prez and Gary were able to get at least 1 elimination. You see Yo5 there off on the side. This is where he has to make that decision. Do I go and leave, try to collect gold, hope to find the reboot van that is uncontested to try to get my teammate back? Or do I lurk around this position, try to get the actual reboot card and go from there?
See if the ambush ends up playing off. But on the other side, DJ and Kaz, after a very strong end game, find themselves in a quick fight here, clean it up with 2 eliminations, and now possibly having to fend off the third party to their north.
It's actually a whole nother team in Riptides here, so they probably, for Gary and Prez, they probably think it's clear. They probably think that player already left. They don't see him in sight. This is a whole another team trying to look around. So you hopefully for Gary and Prez, you don't have that feeling of comfortability. You know how wild thing it can be, and that's QP's there on the edge. That was the guy who lost his teammate and lurking around. And honestly, this could be a blessing for him, because as soon as these 2 teams start to fight, he can go in and lurk around, get damage. He can try to get the actual card. He can loot whatever scraps are nearby. It's definitely given some options to play with.
Yeah, Present Crew really don't seem to have any awareness that there's danger just behind them. So it's going to come down to timing here for Yo5 and company, but might be slipping away opportunity here.
This is the questions you kind of ask yourself. You see it's very, very early on. It could be close, could be far, but Zone is pulling away from where this actual POI is, so it kind of puts a timer in the back of some players' heads, but it does look like they're finally going to fire the shots. DMR from Fireway. It does take heavy ammo, so you're not digging deep into your bag of ammunition for later on in the game, but instead of just going for a straight lurk, they probably think it's taking too long. Let's just try to get some damage here, so that when we do finally rotate, we do have a little bit of a cushion.
Yeah, and they missed probably the easiest tags they were going to get, because Preston's and Gary here are, of course, farming their heavy material right now off this like little building here on the edge, but Yeah, with that being said, they're going to end up skating out a bit earlier and right into another solo that's waiting on that outskirts like we talked about. They already knew that they took someone down, so probably confused. How was it that we just got shot from one player on the opposite side? There was no way that player would have wrapped, right? At least that's what they're probably thinking right now. Meanwhile, Noxy losing the exchange right here. This is not the situation you want to be in at all.
Yeah, almost thinking you're going to go for some free tags. Don't worry, Angel, I got this. And then the opposite happens. Kind of makes you think, second guess decisions like that as everybody's continuing to rotate in. Early on, though, you can see the edge of the zone. Dark Dominion is going to be there, so it's telling me early we got a north, we got an eastern side of the map this game here in number 2. And I think that's why you're seeing Noxy and Angel instead of floating around here. You saw it and called it out yourself how stacked Dark Dominion got in that last game when it pulled towards the north. And this is just learning lessons throughout each and every one of these games today to see if they can pull off that big win and try to get into the grand finals, because it talked about the implications for today's games. It's not only to go to the grand finals next week, but it's for that chance at the Summit land as well, which then turns into a chance for the global championship.
Talk about Gary finding that team on the outskirts. You can see there, they do end up clashing straight into QPs. He's didn't get to quite put up the fight right there that he probably wanted to. He gets sent right back to the lobby. Let's go back here. Yo5 caught kind of in between press. And he's just been waiting here this whole entire time. Talk about going for the long play, but I think Gary might have spotted him out. And then the lurker gets flanked. There's no way Gary was able to play a side angle here. And yeah, once press saw him out, Yo5 thought he was low, but he said, son, you are not slick. And Gary finishes him up.
And for Gary, and then that's a big win. They already got the one Elam off spawn, and now they have that one is there. And the only real damage they've taken so far is from the storm itself. So got to be feeling pretty good here about how your early game has been going and try to build that momentum and that confidence to go into the rest of the game. Just jump on board Airs, Memento, over on the western side of Sandy Strip. And we talked about, hey, one team triple contested, they win game number 1, it kind of lightens up the Sandy Strip POI. Is anybody going to land directly there? Probably not directly on top, but it does allow for a little bit more comfortability rotating in that direction, knowing one less team is in your path.
Yeah, it's going to play out here. Snake's Bluff moving through the zone here, straight towards that opposing team that put those shots off in the distance there. It's going to be Scare's crew. Look at this, Osid. A monstrous high ground base here. Just fishing. Being a menace to all the teams lurking nearby. Now, one thing's for certain, if they've gotten good tags, I mean, this is going to play well for them. However, if they've been going back and forth there, they're going to have to come down eventually.
Like you can kind of feel the tension here in games like this, to where teams are just trying to prioritize rotation, even if it means boxing up, stack 3 teams deep in a single spot. It's almost a feeling of safety as well, because chances of you getting pushed from somebody that might need damage for Storm Surge, that might need some resources, definitely decrease when you're stacked next to so many teams. To jump on board Slate, duo just off the side of the mountain. This is something that we didn't necessarily see in game number 1, but we did see Slate go down. This time around, switching up their strategy over on the top western side of the map. And instead of just trying to rotate down towards the south, they're just trying to stay on the northern edge, ride that coastline and see how far they can do to get in.
Yeah, can't be upset if the little dead side rotates right now, especially while the lobby's still very much getting situated right now for the mid game. Nice little update here with Ghost's team. He's trying to play the rivers. He's got the fishing rod, of course, to try to min-max a little bit of heals here while they wait as well. But no, his teammate. I'm looking down at the bottom corner there. He did get tagged a few times, so luckily no knock there. That would have been devastating.
It's not good. What we got going on here? What do we got going on here? He's just trying right now. He's just trying to do a little bit of everything new, and this is something we haven't really seen too much in a few seasons, actually, the way they are prioritizing a lot of the fishing. And so I'm glad to see him trying to pull out some old tricks, trying to mix it into new strategies and kind of go from there. But I mean, fishing out of a hot tub. It doesn't take a genius to know that's not possible, Monster. Unless
I mean, unless who coded the water, dude? We'll see what ends up happening. He might have some secret strats.
he knows something we don't. I feel like it.
I think so.
He full boxed up on the jacuzzi. He full boxed up on it. He knows something we don't. But Nuts, Sandman, Airs, even got Rubby making their win. Yuz and Sharkman still at their actual POI of Sandy Strip. So you're seeing the actual POI of Sandy and the surrounding lands becoming more and more contested as teams begin to rotate in. But it does look like the zone is going to push everyone towards the west this time around. But it does still have that chance, Monster, of going up towards the Snowy Mountains on the north in back-to-back games.
Chaos Gaming, we've seen him perform pretty well in different types of majors. At least he's gotten, you know, his reps in. He's shown up. He's put up numbers. It's definitely a team here we should be on the lookout for. Oh, right past Caliper's trio there, or duo, but the trees are going to keep him safe for now. Meanwhile, getting to OLK, who's got the high ground here.
Unfortunate circumstances in game number one. Not just this team here, but a few teams actually going down early to Storm Surge. And when you land at the whole southern portions of the map or even southeast, sometimes it's hard to loot up and get all the resources that you want while simultaneously getting damaged, while on top of that rotating in towards the zone. So it's definitely going to be a challenge, but for Electro, he thinks he has an open opportunity here. Here's the farming underneath, spots out Tyler, waiting for him to make one wrong misstep through the window. Here's the team behind him. This is where he is going to be on a clock about how risky this is going to be. Fires that first shot on Tyler, misses the opportunity, quickly disengages back on over towards his side. And those are the little opportunities there. Even though you're 335 above the damage threshold, that might not always be the case. And you look at moments like that, if I would have just got that little bit more damage, we would have been okay.
That would have been a full refresh too, right? Like, you talk about how situated they are here just in general. With the positioning, with the extra material. Could have been perfect from the absolutely guarantee an endgame. Look at this though, Snakes Bluff sitting deep in the storm right now. We've seen this backfire though, right? Endgame's coming down obviously to the distance, and then storm sickness kicking in the heat for Blake's team. Gotta be careful with how you take that unnecessary damage, especially when the zone is coming kind of in your favor. We got second time now, it seems like another North Pole.
Yeah, and I honestly wouldn't be surprised if one of the games today at bare minimum came down to some sort of a heal off, because
oh yeah,
when it's that much pressure of a win and you're in, I mean, we've seen, you know, players bring some extra heals so that way they can move back in the zone before they use the shockwaves to go in. So definitely going to see a lot of strategies exposed today due to the differentiator of the format. As we got Jeff and Boji here on the side of the mountain just above the waterfall. And this is going to be a good chance for them. You see the whole eastern side of the zone. They desperately need Surge, and this is going to be the best chance that they have to get it.
I wonder if they're just trying to bait, opening up that wood wall there to see if anyone would take it. Shots do come in, but Boji doesn't really have a chance to fire back. Instead, they're forced to heal right now. Okay, so this is definitely going to give away to the rest of the lobby that there's a team in deep trouble right here.
Yeah, they may not necessarily hear the strikes of Surge, but you definitely hear the shields crack. And right now, Boji is so close to that shield cracking, trying to go ahead and lurk on one team. The zone kind of opening up in their favor, but they are definitely on the clock. But it looks like for early on in this zone, 54 damage needed. They're going to drop a couple of their heals so that way they don't have to make a rash decision, rush into any desperation, and gives them an opportunity here to play for that piece control. But 54 below, active Surge every 7 seconds. They are taking so much damage here, and they're even falling further and further below the damage threshold.
This is good though. They have a team rotating just next door. They couldn't quite find them, and there's others following that same pathway, so they just take... I was going to say, just take the time to jump out there, follow that path. They'll definitely get a nice little elimination here. One trailing behind and the duo right in front. It's Saya and Sky Kame. And we saw Saya really playing well earlier in that game number one and continuing to do so here and now, defending themselves with excellent shots. Boji ends up falling there. They get the full finish, and that's going to be a lot of damage as well, swinging in their favor. So I think Sky and Saya here were also likely just about to fall under the Surge, but how quickly they got those elims there, Jacob. Now they don't even have a problem.
One team going down, which kind of lightens up and loosens up the lobby just a little bit. The Storm Surge still being a deciding factor for a good chunk of teams in this game. And yeah, I thought game one might have been the only slow game, but back-to-back games where teams really prioritizing simply just staying alive, rotating from point A to point B in order to try to get there as safely as possible. Osid and Scare, 121. And this is where they know in the back of their mind, yes, they're barely above that damage threshold. They have so much time and opportunity to look back. Yuz and Sharkman don't have that same comfortability. They have to go, and they have to go now because they're just a few ticks away from going down and take it out of this game due to Storm Surge. But luckily for them, Monster, they're already at that edge of the zone, and they can look towards the north and try to get some shots on all the teams rotating in.
Yeah, that's what they were definitely trying to do there. Not even willing to, I would say, take the risk. They were having themselves completely exposed in exchange for tags, but doesn't look like it's going to be enough. I think Northern actually ends up getting the final say there. For Osid, they're back in the game. They find just enough damage. It seems like folks that were on the immediate competition on the Surge leaderboard have fallen as they jump way up. Still have QK Contract trying to position up for high ground. I think getting a little sample of it in game one. They're probably going to be going for it again.
378 for Kaz's D-Gen. They were one of the teams, one of many teams that we saw fight it for the high ground. They launched up. They put everything to the test. They won it at one point. One of them did get knocked. They tried to go for a revive and use that as an opportunity to hold on to the high ground, but the relentless pressure, so many teams sending it up towards the north, just kind of caused everything to come crashing down. This is another one of those teams, Noxy and Angel. This time it looks like to start off some of these ending zones, it's a little bit of a different look. From the low ground, they say, hey, we got shock. Maybe if we combine that with the Fizz later on, we can still steal away that high ground.
Yeah, I'm gonna see if Osid and Scare are probably gonna go for like a late shockwave out to probably play for high ground, but it's only zone 7, so we saw how many teams are willing to take the risk to continue to contest high coming into this game here. The lobby really just leaves no room to reward any other play style. Trucks gets pressure though on the rotate there, unfortunately landing right in between the line of fire of all the other opponents. Surge is continuing to do damage, by the way, to different players in the game here. I think about 10 or so. Yeah, 10 players have to fall still, so there's a significant amount of players still alive here that are having some serious pressure put on their shoulders, which means they're going to be colliding right into the boxes of others.
Yeah, and this kind of plays those mental games too. With only 7 players at this time, 3 already falling. Do you out-heal it? Do you try to keep going? For a team like Chance and Tyler, they're 280 above, and they realize Storm Surge is about to turn off. They're already inside of the zone, so now they're only pressuring because they got that opportunity up above. As soon as that team repositions, they re-close the boxes. They don't want to open up and give any risk here for teams just trying to get some damage of their own, and as soon as the zone pulls towards the north, they're one of the first teams to immediately try to shockwave over, and we're in the 8th zone, Monster. This is where we typically start to think, is it too early to go for high ground? But this is where we typically do teams start to see them set themselves up.
Yeah, this, the time is now essentially, but look, no one's taking a risk here after game 1. It was almost like a warning sign to all the teams that went early for height that it was not worth it. And now everyone's doing the opposite. Everyone's very much timid here and doesn't want to commit early. And we're seeing a lot of good material counts, right? Tyler, Chance being relatively situated. Osid was looking very strong there, but look at this. Threats here, playing this game out. Looks like by himself at the moment, still holding it down, still making it very deep into the lobby so far.
Hey, I'm ready for history to be made. If somehow, some way, Threats wins this game by himself, I think that might be the first time ever in the history of the game we see it, but only time will tell, and it's definitely going to be hard to see a team like this. Chance and Tyler playing so methodical here of how they've been approaching this end game, only taking steps forward when they know it's 100% guaranteed They won't take too much damage. Peeking, just trying to get some opportunities. You saw them land a couple of shots a few seconds ago, but now they're just waiting, biding time. Zone's gonna pull, and as soon as it does, immediately they start to react. They realize in all of these occasions, timing is of the essence. In a smart heads-up play, they're gonna go ahead and sacrifice some HP, so that way they cut that zone off and get to the front without any risk.
You know, I was curious who's going to be the first team to go for it. And it's going to be Sandman and Nut there trying to position up. Stax' team is going to go ahead and fall there, but this is going up and over a little bit of some terrain. That's going to go ahead and cause some problems for anyone that was starting to run a bit low on material. Meanwhile, Scare and Osick continue to play the mid ground. Has cost them a fair bit, but they do have those slap pizzas, right? So they have a lot of options. We're talking about teams potentially thinking about going for a heal off. If Osid can just wait this one out and not take unnecessary damage or find a refresh, they could be a potential team that sets themselves up for a heal off victory.
Yeah, we're already seeing teams, though, trying to go ahead and elevate themselves. QK and Khan, they were on the high ground before. They were the first team to get contested up there. This time, Nut and Sandman are above. You see Nut just immediately trying to put down pressure. Evans just trying to get to the front side of the zone. He might be stuck by himself, but solo dreams still do happen. Kaz and Degen, they're taking a different approach. Instead of sending towards the high ground, they're trying to dominate that mid layer, and this is the pressure that they're feeling. They're hoping and praying every other team sends it like that first game, but this is completely different. Everybody's down below, including Nut and Sandman, who get chopped from high ground and get eliminated.
Yeah, QK and Contract were the one that actually broke that build there. Was held on, unfortunately, by one little wood structure. Everything in the front was metal, but that was just a pump fake because there was a wood wall in the back, piecing it all together, and they find it. So now DJ and Kaz come up for height here. QK and Contract just can't catch a break, although they timed it perfectly and they want to get to those structures and play for height. They're now forced to take this fight once again here.
Yeah, and so far, it does look like it's working out for QK and Khan. This time around, they get that first elimination, and now they're pushing Kaz's out of the zone, making him take HP damage, and as soon as he makes his appearance in, he gets pressured from both high and low ground. QK and Khan waiting till this perfect moment to try to make their play, but they still got Evan down below. Shots are going to connect. That's one solo. You still got Osid and Scare as well on the low ground. Another strong duo here that can disrupt everything that they have going for them.
Maybe they have connected. Now they're out of material, so let's see what Osid, Scare have in the tank. Okay, the refresh is going to go and give them a little bit of material, and I see the heal count too. So medkits, slap pieces, plenty to work with, but Eulogy and Stiff are still in this game, so you have to think Osid and Scare are thinking to themselves right now, we cannot ease up. We still have to continue to fight our way through this.
Yep. QK and Khan, you see there's a lot of recycled builds down below, so even though they might not know exactly where they're at, they're just putting full on pressure, at least trying to get to the duos down below to clash. With Scare, no shields, Osid is there, everybody down below doesn't have anything to regenerate. It's going to force them to fight, especially with no builds. Osid is trying to find the path. Scare just goes for a flank shot behind, but the pressure from up above is just relentless, not really giving up on an opportunity. Osid does go down. That's Eulogy who tries to make the play along with Stiff. Can they survive? Because high ground is now dropping. QK makes the perfect play. Him and Khan, even with 3 medkits in the back pocket that they don't need, they clutch up.
Game 1 was close for them. They actually had the heart for go for height. It seems like they adjusted their strategy, and then Jacob figure it out for game 2. Well played for QK and Contract here. Zeke, what do you think about that one?
Bro, again, congratulations to the duo. They're just finding that calm in the chaos, right? Like, in these situations, so many things can go wrong for so many different duos. You think you're set up, you think you have Surge, you think you have weapons, builds, whatever, and then suddenly someone's flying at you in your box, you know, and it all falls apart. But for QK and Khan, they really just slowed things down, right, Kelly? We kind of saw something out of last game as well, kind of similar, where they're just like, okay, look, everything's chaotic. Like, let's just, what are we doing? What's our plan? Take a breather. Let's go for that W.
Yeah, once again, waiting for the right opportune moment to take height, waiting for another team to try and steal it. So that chaos in the high ground allowed them to go and get the elimination onto Degen. So Degen and Kaz had to drop down below. And then, of course, you had the 2 teams on low ground that they just patiently waited to face for each other. You could hear Monster D-Face saying that there was just so much pressure from above that QK and Khan were able to just kind of make those other 2 teams face each other, which allowed them to get the final elimination.
Incredible awareness on multiple fronts from this duo. The first, of course, being the initial high ground take that pretty much knocked Nut and Sandman off the high ground. They kind of went up and they were immediately tasked with taking down Degen and co, right? They win that 2v2, and after that, the rest of the lobby is kind of forced down to the low ground. This was their only play to use all of their ammunition to go ahead and pressure all of these builds, because as you can see, this whole entire time, they actually had 0 builds to work with right there. So super scary stuff, but they played it to perfection. Didn't even use any of those heals like Jacob was kind of talking about, but clutched up. They took high ground at the exact moment they needed to. They won the game. They're going to Grands.
I love it. We'll have to see what they prepare for Grands, right? Now they've made it through the hard part. Next up is trying to qualify to the summit, man. It doesn't get much more difficult than that. That being said, though, that's now 2 games, only 3 left to go. After this short break, we'll start to prepare ourselves for the next game and talk about some of the close calls we had in this last game.
No love songs, just a war cry vibe. This is my world, watch me arrive. Watch me arrive. Watch me arrive. Watch me arrive.
Welcome back to the FNCS Fortnite fam. This is the LCL. Only 3 games left to go, where only the victory royale matters. Scare times here in the FNCS. Game 2 went over the weight of QK and Khan. You know, Kelly Khan reminds me of another Khan name, Canada. I hope he's doing well. Much love, brother. Why don't we talk about things that happened in this game? A lot of close calls here. You know, we've seen a few names like time and time again after like the same time. Degen and Kaz one, Scare and Osid another. Starting off with Degen and Kaz though, you know, I feel like the pieces are there, right? Like again, because it's LCL, even if you have the pieces, there's so many other chaotic factors at play And when all you can do is get the VR, it becomes so much more difficult.
That's very true. And you can see that Degen and Kaz definitely had a plan in mind there. They were sticking to the low ground. They didn't really have too many materials, but that did not stop them from trying to take height. Once they were able to kind of get a few refreshes, they did go for that. Unfortunately, it did not ultimately go their way. Of course, we saw QK and Khan go for height instead. They were able to recover just a little bit. I believe Degen actually went down and Kaz was able to drop down for just a few seconds, but obviously it doesn't matter if you can get a solo clutch and make it to third place after losing your teammate here, because no one cares if you get third in the last chance lobby.
I mean, I actually care because I think Degen and Kaz, they're playing pretty good, right? I mean, you could see it. The formula is there. They have the game plan. Zeke was kind of calling it out that it does look like they are playing extremely well. I think games 1 and game 2, pretty much the same exact thing happened. They took high ground and then immediately lost it afterwards. So as soon as they can kind of figure out just that little bit of a hiccup, maybe they have to take it a little bit later or just be a little bit, more aware of their surroundings after they do take it. I really do think that they are looking like one of the best teams for me personally to actually win one of the next 3 games.
All right. Okay. What about then on the other side, right? Scare and Osid. We see them once again make it into that top 10 situation. But, to both your points, how do we attack this, right? How do we make sure we put ourselves in a situation to get the VR? I mean, how do you find that calm in the storm?
Oh, man, we've now seen 2 games and 2 different strategies coming out of Scare and Osid. In game number 1, they went for height, but it didn't go exactly their way, with actually the low ground team winning the game. And then in this one, they stuck to low ground. They had different heals. They didn't necessarily have the loadout, but honestly, this was less so of what they did wrong and more so of just what high ground did right. You can only do so much when you have another duo on low ground and then high ground just pressuring you, Vivid.
I mean, the only thing that Osid and Scare were missing right there, and it came down to that final decision. It kind of split up. You could see Eulogy and Stiff, they were side by side going into that 2v2 on the low ground, whereas Osid and Scare, they're kind of like jumping around. They're looking for each other, looking for an angle. So I feel like they lost sight of a plan in the end, where as if they had one, then they probably could have clutched it up and maybe had an opportunity to go ahead and 2v2 QK and con up with the high ground, which would have still ended up being tough. But yeah, Osid and Scare making multiple end games. We kind of expected that so far. 3 more chances for them as well. We'll have to see if they can clutch up.
All right, so talk to me about this high ground situation, okay? This is some of the most chaotic we're going to see. High ground, flipping back and forth. Duels up there, like Sandman, for example, taking up to height and, taking these fights. I asked before this game, how much is too much? How much should we be attacking this high ground?
Well, I believe they took it around zone 8, and that is definitely a little early from being able to hold high ground, especially that long, especially when you know that there is a lot of teams looking up. But it is also possible that they were kind of knowing that this is a little early. This will just give them an opportunity to look at the rest of the lobby, and then potentially if someone comes up, at this point we're already so low on mats, let's drop down and give it up. But unfortunately, they didn't get that opportunity because they got chopped.
I was going to say, they were actually healthy enough, right? They did take it a little earlier than what we have seen before, but they did have the opportunity to continue if they were just a little bit more aware of what was going on with their connections to the rest of the builds. And yeah, that's the big question for me. Usually the way these types of lobbies go is as the games go on, as we get kind of deeper into the competition, the high ground does get a little bit more chaotic. We've already had pretty much like that chaotic, high ground. Are these teams going to maybe switch it up and it's going to be like the reverse effect? Or we start to get a little bit more calm on the high ground as the games goes on because teams have tried it? Maybe they don't like the way that it's looking. I don't know. We can never really predict these things, but either way, I feel like we're going to be entertained.
I feel like ultimately, as long as you and your duo are alive, chances are good, right? You called out before.
Yeah.
Splitting up, not great. Normally, in FNCS, that's fine. Heats, finals, sure. LCL, you need all that firepower from both members of a duo alive if you want to try and aim for that VR. But for now, it is that time once again. Game number 3 is ready. So, casters, over to you.
That's such a beautiful breakdown as well, because that's kind of very, very similar thoughts that when I'm thinking in game 1, we had 6 or 7 teams send it towards the height. In game 2, we kind of had half of that kind of playing towards that mid ground. Now we're in that halfway point where teams really had enough time to fill each other out, how they're playing this lobby. And it just has me scratching my head. What will we see here?
Yeah, I mean, who knows what comes next? This lobby has really taken a turn, right? Game 2, so much more passive when it comes to like throwing everything at the wall, tossing a deck of cards in the air, right? And shooting for height. Everyone was much more reserved. However, whoever took the risk, obviously, as we saw in the last game, ended up being rewarded. So ultimately now, I think we're going to find that balance, right? As we start getting the jitters out the way, Jacob, folks start reevaluating the strategy here.
Yeah, and it's really important because I always look at the mental game. Right now, you're in game 3, right? You already had 2 chances. You have 3 more at the end of the day. But if you don't find yourself in finals by game number 5, I think everybody is going to crash. But we're at the halfway point, so let's jump right in.
Last chance lobby game 3 is now kicking up and starting off. 3 more spots to finals are available here, Jacob. It's going by really, really quickly. And if you're one of the teams contested off the drop, I mean, you have to assume that every single time they jump into the game, they are holding their breath. And these battle buses have not been favorable to them, right? You kind of don't want it to be right on top of you. It makes it go down like this. Very, very quickly, it could turn back. And Sip's going to be the first one to get caught off here by Hefe Bob. So Cyros almost forced to come down here now and back him up. This fight being pushed to the limits here.
Yeah, 2 different approaches here. No plays, and Civ just went straight down to the bottom. Meanwhile, Hefe Bob and his duo Cyros, they attacked from 2 different angles, and that's what seems to be that difference maker. Even though Cyros did get a ton of damage from Noah plays, it was just enough of a distraction for this 2v1 to really ensue. And unlike any of the games that we saw, game 1 and game 2, this one has been cleared out very, very quickly. So for Hefe Bob and Cyros, they got a lot of time to work in this early game.
Yeah, and then when you get sent back earlier, you just got to sit there with your thoughts, try to figure this one out. And I'll just say it, like, that battle bus, like I said, is not exactly favorable. If you're contested, it goes right over your drop. It just makes it so you have to be really, really perfect. It's hard to practice for. Yuz, Sharkman on the other side versus Nut and Sandyman. This is definitely a strong duo, the strong duo. Sharkman, Yuz right now, positioned down by the river's edge. Seems like they've already engaged back and forth so far. Relatively decent tournament day for Sharkman and Yuz. They've made some endgame appearances, but again, still quite the distance to go. They want to play for the win.
Yeah, I thought these was one of the teams that was supposed to be landing over towards Sandy Strip. They might have got pushed out early on. You see the damage there, but this is where you got to be careful. Sometimes when you see somebody fishing, it's almost a sign of weakness. And I think that's what Nut has spotted out in the distance, immediately hopping on over. Here's Yuz in the distance. Instead of just focusing on one, he tries to pay attention to 2, but just shots come in. It's more than just them. It's third parties now affecting this fight, and this is where those decisions to get aggressive early sometimes to be decisions that you're going to regret.
And there goes the finish right there. So it does come through. Sandman gets shot as well from the team on the mountain. And this is just a messy, messy battle. Sandman, Nut clearly regretting sticking around as long as they have done so far. You know, Yuz and Sharkman are like, had a surprising amount of material already. You know, it's one of those things where, again, it's almost like a false fake out. You know, you're thinking, oh, these guys are in shambles, right? You clearly can't have that much. He's just sitting in a wood box. But no, they were saving what little bit of the heavy material they did have because they somehow managed to get themselves pretty situated early for what it's worth.
Sometimes you just got to save the good mats to a little bit later. I see Slate, this top side of the map against Liquid and Flappy. They do get an early advantage here. And this is where if you're Slate and Mukatov, you got to start to think, like, how do we turn these small wins at our drop spot into a game win? Especially when both of the zones so far have been in that favor. We'll see how this one continues to shake out. Very, very early on to see where this zone is pulling. But for Threats and Veer landing at Dark Dominion, it almost doesn't matter to them. They got equal footing anywhere they want to go. Wave. Yamin just trying to rotate away from this side of the map, but they're just getting chased not only by one team, but you see a solo player up above also shooting shots in that direction. And you can see they're very, very low on materials, so if they continue to get pressured, this might turn into a nightmare.
It could go either way, but at least the team kind of eased off here for now. Phenom Pods just backing on off. Wave and Amen are going to go there separated, so they will all live to see another day. Jumping back in with Scuffies and Day. Again, game 2 ended very quickly as they were completely dropped. at their early game, and now they're mixing it up. Jacob, it seems like they have given up the wonky land.
Yeah, it seems like they're kind of switching up their drop spot. And honestly, coming into this tournament, they weren't necessarily maining Wonky Land as their POI. They just see that they're in the last chance lobby, and they're like, hey, might as well shoot for the stars, go for the best POI. And now they're just kind of going back to game plans that they know works best for them. Towards the south side of the map, though, this is where it usually ends up being the congested side of the map. We see AIM and Chaos Gaming finally meeting up with Wave and Amen as they rotated towards the south side of the zone, but this is where they're trying to get a little bit of a cutback here. They don't have a lot of materials. You talked about brick, metal being the most precious of the sources. They need to find something, and they need to find it quick before Chaos Gaming can get word about how lack of resources they are.
Yeah, it could have went either way, but again, giving them enough time to go ahead and bounce back. Scuffies and Day, though, playing that little cave's edge, lurking from place to place, and they catch a player off guard there. A nice little pickup for them there. Going to go ahead and set themselves up for some extra material here. And this is already going much better, clearly, than getting eliminated off drop. So they're probably going to be sticking to this kind of frigid split drop. Chance and Tyler on the other side from end game to early fight now, toe-to-toe here against Angel's duo.
Yeah, just kind of looking at how the games have been going so far. Chance and Tyler, 11th place, 38th place. Not necessarily where they would have hoped to be so far in this tournament, but hey, it's progress, and that's kind of the feeling that you need to hang your hat on in this one. But a fight early against Noxy and Angel, that's one that scares me just a little bit. Noxy and Angel have been pretty consistent of their own. 6th place, 13th place, mixed together a couple of eliminations here. Probably realizing a fight over towards Humble Hills where they're missing a third or more than a third of their materials might not be the best case, especially since they're already in the zone. So rotating out to try to complete what they're missing.
Now, one of those circumstances where you get the damage and it is time to bust a move, get on out of there. Jump over to the landing here to the north. Cirque, Cynix already on the move here. Two teams that were, of course, looked at here kind of early on. But back on over to AIM and Chaos Gaming. So they've continued to have this standoff here. Remember when we last tuned in, they had Amen kind of pressured down, and we knew they didn't really have a lot of material, but it seems like Wave and Amen haven't quite left the drop. So Amen Chaos is probably thinking to themselves that something desperate has to be going on with this duo here.
Yeah, especially if they know that's the same one that was getting chased around. They had to have a huge lack of resources, especially in comparison to Chaos and AIM here. Almost more than halfway maxed up, and you can see they're prioritizing a lot of the metal here. You kind of break those metal frames. It's one of the best pieces of metal in this building that you're able to get, and I think that's why Wave and Amen were kind of focusing on getting the frames, the bottom side of the building. From 0 to 18, it's not much, you know as well as I do, but at least it's something here to fight back in this close quarters combat situation.
Yeah, Chaos Gaming here now starting to take control of what they can for the builds. Now starting to choke them off from the left and right hand sides. Playing a dual-sided angle. I mean, Wave and Amen have to come in together and focus in, and I mean, at least that little side angle right there plays to the favor of Amen's duo.
I almost wish they would have just hopped in that box. As soon as they got the damage onto AIM, it almost looked like Wave was going to come back. They were going to try to spray their way in. You can kind of see they're just lacking a good amount of resources, probably thinking it's not necessarily worth risk, down to bandages when it comes to HP, minis, even one shockwave left, but that puts a huge amount of importance on this actual fight as AIM bites off more than he can chew. They finally push their way in, but I think there might have been a good shot being landed by Chaos Gaming here. If he can somehow push his way in, try to get at least one shot onto Wave, narrow this down to a 1v1, but he goes in blind. Amen gets a good shot onto him, dropping him down to less than 50 HP, and this is their chance to pressure. They know they got one elimination. They know he's by himself. They have to be able to close it out and not give Chaos Gaming a chance to fight back.
Nice little shots there from the SMG as well for the follow-up, and they do get to close it out. You know, I was a little concerned of whether or not they'd be able to finish the job there with how passive they were playing, but in the end, it works out the way it was supposed to. On over to the Battlewood sign. Scuffies and Day have made their way out that low frozen terrain and on into better scenery here.
Try Just
Looks like they had a standoff there, Jacob.
Yeah, just fighting for priority position, and I say fighting pretty loosely. You know, teams taking it very, very slow, and yet another game here, letting Tyler and Chance rotate off towards the top of the mountain. They think the zone is pulling in that direction. For Day and Scuffies, they can continue to progress up this mountain, but since the zone is pulling teams towards the western side of the map, it might be beneficial for them to stay here depending on what their storm surge looks like.
And the only problem I saw there was that they seem to have gone through all the wood and brick. But he did still have 500 metal, but yeah, everything else was fully committed in fighting against looks to be Noxie's Angel. You know, Havoc and Vibes kind of hanging out right now in the storm. Little did they know there is an opponent above them. Seem to kind of recognize there might be danger here, so I'm gonna wait this one out for a second. Nice bandages.
Yeah, I like, you know, when instead of just dropping down the Slapperoni Pizza, using splashes, just try to get the maximum use out of everything that is around you. That way, if they do break into those Slapperoni Pizza boxes or use splashes, they have to use far fewer than if they would have just those bandages out. But you can see where the zone is kind of pulling teams just the north side of Battlewood, inside of the zone. Maybe you got Hollow in there as well, all the way over towards the Riptides. And this is where it is going to ease up a little bit when it comes to the pressure in these moving zones later on in this game, because we don't have those snow mountain ranges towards the north side.
Got those slap pizzas. Little early break in for Smiley and Liam here. They're forced to use their last big pot. Now they're down to the wire here. Surge now starting to get active, Jacob. 10 players or so are going to be under pressure. A couple highlights here from Chance and Tyler. We saw this again, the standoff against from Day's duo, then rotate and move into Threats in Veer, who was just off in the distance, listening to that initial battle, end up on the losing side of the gun. I didn't see if Veer was still standing, but Threats surely was taken out in the highlight.
Yeah, it's going to put a lot of pressure on Veer. We saw Threats by himself as a solo last time. Now it's going to be Veer's turn, hopefully to try to get the reboot back into the game. Using some other teams around him as a distraction might not be a bad idea. Stiff Eulogy just kind of prolonging their journey inside of the zone. And now that they're 300 above the damage threshold, you could see why they're employing this strategy, because it gets so chaotic at the edges of the zone when everybody's trying to rotate in. They miss a huge portion of that destruction. The only thing they got to worry about is how they're going to get there once they're on the edge. You see Rickroll. You see Bad Luck here, 68 below the damage threshold here, falling to 92. This is exactly why you see they're getting aggressive.
Here, probably time here shortly. Pressuring the opponents on the other side of the wall. There goes the shield, essentially. This Ovary Mist definitely playing into their favor at the moment, giving them enough time to go back and forth, but they're not finding the tags. Johans and Flurry try to back out, drop to low ground there, so Rick and Bad Luck actually lose their opponents for a moment here, and that's more time playing against them here.
That's exactly what happens. You kind of end up in a desperate situation. They did have some time to maybe pop mini or big pop, but either way, that was just a tough situation to get out of inside of the storm, below the damage threshold, and it's active. Now Flurry and Johans here are feeling that same thing. 45 below after winning that fight just goes to show that even if you get eliminations, doesn't necessarily help your cause. And the nearest team to him immediately shockwaves away, which almost ensures he's going to take a few more ticks of damage before he's box to box against anybody.
Yeah, they're going to take a ton of damage here. Day and Scuffies were in the same situation just moments ago and now forced to heal up. Talk about Flurry, though. Look, he falls, trying to make his way desperately to the zone there. They were moving too quickly. He couldn't even stop down and heal. The pressure was too much, and Scuffy's Days get not only delivered a little bit of damage, but definitely some extra loot. Here comes Johans right behind them, and little do they know, Scuffy and Days, they need this. They're like, oh, great. We can fight ourselves possibly another little battle here before we get going.
Yeah, 9 damage above the damage threshold is good for that zone, but as I was going to say, as soon as we move on over to zone 6, they're surely going to be below. Luckily for them, it isn't by much. they can try to bide their time. Good damage onto Liam. That's going to help a little bit, but Storm Surge activates. Some of those ticks are going to land on Day, but they get themselves above the damage threshold here for a few seconds. So they're going to have to really plan ahead to see how they're going to rotate from point A to point B with taking minimal damage and not falling back under.
These are other teams that were just under the Surge battle as well. All being very much pressured here, forced into some bad situations here. Phenom now, the great little shockwave to get to the edge of zone, bases up. He's got a lot of heals to work with, so digging into the Chug Jug here is going to go in and cap him off. But as a solo, it's going to be hard to win this one, especially if we're playing with a bit of water terrain. See how it ends up kind of cutting up. Back to Scuffy and Daze, though. These late rotates here because they were forced to stick around longer than they probably originally wanted to, given that they needed to fight for Surge. But Scuffy's is doing what he has to do, and look at this. Quite the find there on the heels of Chug Jug. It only's got 100, but hey, it's enough to at least keep him alive right now.
Has to be careful here. He's trying to utilize as many of the heals that he just got for getting those eliminations, but once zone closes, it's going to do so much damage trying to stagger back, and you see Day just trying to wait, bide his time, hopefully use the strength and numbers to get in, but with the zone already engulfing Scuffy's, he has no choice but to go by himself. He tries to rotate over and immediately begins to get lobby targeted out. Scuffy's probably hears the communication coming through, trying to beeline his way on over. They're barely 64 above the damage threshold. They're not necessarily thriving, Monster, but at least they're surviving for now.
Hey, they've done enough. They got to the new zone. They still have a med kit in the tank as well. Meanwhile, Tyler has already lost his duo. He's barely hanging on right now, but putting up a good fight nonetheless here to stay in the game. Again, we've seen him at least in one end game before, but no, look at this. The Surge turns back online. Scuffy's loses his teammate there, Day, and unfortunately he's now forced to play this one out by himself here.
Such a nightmare of a scenario. Immediately looks down. Vibes' duo got eliminated, but he's not able to take part in that. Drops in, tries to land the first shot, but he's so far below the damage threshold. He almost needs an elimination here. And now Tyler's feeling that same type of struggle. Luckily for him, he has a couple slices of pizza left in the back pocket. Tries to break into the box, 28 above, but he gets sent back to the lobby as well.
Yeah, not even a good refresher for the receiving team as he went through his pizzas there right at the end. He lands a big shot before getting sent back to the lobby. Well, back on over to Osid and Scare. Feels like it's been their show this evening, and it's only a matter of time, hopefully, before they can put it all together and get that win. This is the most experienced team amongst the general lobby, I think, is, stat for stat so far. And they've performed really well.
Yeah, if consistency mattered, they'd be in first place for sure, but that's not the point of today's tournament. You have to win. They've gotten a second place right there on the line. They've gotten a fifth place, so they already have the recipe for success. It's about executing on the blueprint that you have right before you. Angel, Noxie, they also had a close call today already. Sixth place, we saw them risk it all for that high ground in game number one. Unfortunately, so did so many other teams, so they went down in sixth place, but now they're really trying to make up for it. You see them trying to scout in the distance. Who has high ground? Can he hold it? And which way the zone pulls, they can decide what's next.
They're running 3 Flowberry Fizz with floppers as well, so really keeping the options open here as we're into the deep edge of the late game right now. But high ground right now, Cirque and Cynics are the main team position. There's others here playing for this layer as well. As you can see, folks are looking to start elevating themselves. So back to almost a game one feel, where game two was very much defensive and passive come the end game. Now game three, things seem to be swinging back on the pendulum here, for teams possibly looking to aggro up for height. Noxie Angel, though.
Sayos going through Scribbly Schwartz creates a unique environment here towards the end game. There's the low grab, the rift, and that's why you saw Wave and his duo kind of floating down from above, going from that mud, ultimate low ground, to be able to find what they hope to be a little bit of a safer spot. Cynics there along with Cirque, but look at Osid and Scare in the background. You got Electro and his duo as well. I think this one, you got a couple teams that are using high ground as a possible option, only if it does come down to it. Osid and Scare continue to elevate while they can. They just want to give themselves multiple options here when it comes to this end game.
Yeah, and they recognize there's a team right above them there as well. So already utilizing what looked to be one or two of the Flowberry Mist, trying to play that outskirts on the zone here, download some information, but didn't turn into much just yet. Look, Cynics and Crew are still boxed up as well, by the way. They are playing super passively, not to get overdrived on top of, or like you said, possibly landed on from the Rift here. And it's going to be Lores and Amplify will end up making the last desperate effort from the zone into the high ground position. Let's take a look at the maps. They have plenty to go the distance at the moment. All into Amplify's loadout. However, it's going to come down to, can you pressure the rest of the lobby? You still have Scare and Osid playing the mid-ground layer. Electro still eyeing it up as well. So high ground is not safe just yet.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be safe up until when this game ends, but for them, they've at least been able to solidify, and they have to be able to capitalize on a game like this. Squibbly Shores is their POI for today, especially when multiple teams that were threatening their high ground got dropped down as solo. Scare is now back to the lobby, really forced to watch Osid try and clutch up, and he gets a monster of a second Elim, but cannot wait for the Cypher to come through just yet. He has to let the zone pass him by, but he's still being a nuisance here in the backside of the zone. Another elimination going down for Osid. The Siphon is keeping him alive back here, so that way he can scrap together the rest of these builds and finally shockwave his way into the zone.
That was crazy. If he would have just picked up a little bit more, but then he gets the Siphon as I'm outlining it. Hold up. Osid is cooking right now. But again, all that matters is the victory royale. He's taking way too much punishment here, and now Cynics actually falls here from the team up top. The low ground team putting pressure up as well. It's Gary and Press who are now starting to take the lead here. 6 slap pizzas as well. They have a win condition. Noxy also still has 2 Flowberry Mist, 2 floppers too. So win conditions, people are holding on to those white heels right now. One team jumps into the zone here. Jacob Slate, though, is kind of in the mix, forced into the barrel and takes the fight here. Doesn't end up well for him, unfortunately. And now look at high ground here.
Eulogy, Stiff, Prez, Glizzy, Amplifier trying to hold on to what they think is theirs, but the shockwaves are coming out. The Fizz as well. This is just causing chaos as Angel, Noxy, they have no choice but to give it up. Eulogy falls down as well. Everybody that went up got sent packing as Amplify and his duo hold on to the high ground here, and we're going over recycled builds. That gives them a little bit more of a blessing, something to work with here, as everybody down below is going to have to go head to head to try to survive. And you're seeing everybody lose their teammates in this game as it passes through this next zone.
I mean, but the high ground team is not in a winning position at all. They don't have any heals. They've utilized so much material to just go back up what was left of it, and now they're gonna have to fight their way through these builds while the zone is getting smaller and smaller. Chris and Drew are arguably set up the best right now. However, what does Angel have in his pocket? What can he do to be the disruptor? Because he's just waiting, trying to buy his time right now.
Yeah, from high ground, they're just trying to go ahead and put pressure on the builds, clear themselves a path that they can look. And there goes Angel being the disruptor. Gets a big shot onto Drew before going down to the Storm. Now it's almost like an even playing field. Both of these guys have one teammate weak. Chris is trying to go ahead and alleviate some of that pressure that allows for Drew to buy the time to heal. They have an advantage when it comes to builds. It looks like they have an advantage when it comes to heals. But Amplify, he's an X factor here with almost full HP and shield. Chris, Drew sending it up. They drop him down in the box and clean up both eliminations, and have now advanced to the FNCS Grand Finals.
Chris and Drew have done it once again here. You know, the teams that have the little bit of extra experience now going the distance and closing in the end when it matters most. Congratulations for Chris and Drew as the Game 3 victory is theirs, Zeke.
Again, you know, you got to feel that sense of relief for them. I think what's really interesting is out of game number 1, Drew and Chris actually were second place, right? They kind of they had that one where they could have got the VR, but it just barely slipped away. And now to come back in game number 3 and be like, hey, you know what? It wasn't a fluke. We deserved that VR. We got it. We went ahead and picked it up now.
Man, as a duo that has been so close so many times, they got 137 in the play-ins, just barely making it into heats. And then in heats, they got 22nd place overall, so just barely outside of that top 15 contention. Then, of course, they performed very well throughout the Div Cup placements, but have yet to just find their footing, find that opportunity to break into the top 10. But better late than never, going into the last chance lobby, getting the 3rd victory royale of the day is definitely a way to set yourselves from the rest. So congratulations to this duo. Can't wait to see how they do in Grand Finals.
Absolutely. A breakthrough performance here is what I would coin it. Chris is going to be making his way to his first FNCS Grand Finals, and Drew just his second. And I love that Zeke kind of called out already. We've seen a good game from these guys. It was game number 1, but in that game specifically, I remember it was Drew. He was solo. He was trying to make it happen, but the numbers were stacked up against him, right? A 1v2 situation. Flip the script. Game number 3, both of them stay alive, and it just looked easy after that. Low Ground is winning games right now on NA, and it's making everything exciting.
Which is crazy, right? Like, sometimes we see this back and forth, but out of an LCL, you'd assume it's that high ground, but everyone is fighting for it with crazy chops and all of it. It's crazy. Okay, 2 games left to go before this LCL concludes. We're gonna go to break. When we return, let's start setting up for these last 2, because there's only a handful of opportunities left. My stress is coming back. My stress. My stress.
No love songs, just a walk by. This is my world. Watch me arrive. Watch me arrive. Watch me arrive. Watch me arrive.
Okay. I'm fine again. Stress is back to a manageable level. Everything's fine. Everything's chill. Welcome back to the LCL. Chris and Drewbot got themselves a VR in game number 3. They're moving on to the finals this weekend. I'm sure they're excited, but we still have 2 games left to go here. Friends, with the 2 games left, let's start easy here. How are you guys enjoying the LCL? Kind of coming back and having this opportunity to stream, broadcast this again. It's definitely chaotic. It's a little chaotic and a little different than heats and finals. It's its own special thing. So how are you guys enjoying it so far?
I love it when we get just like a little display of what Fortnite has to offer. And I feel like as far as competitions go for end games and where people find their success, we're definitely getting a little bit of everything right now. We're having a confident high ground from 9th Zone. We're having a lot of contenders tension, where teams are trading off high ground. We're having teams win from low ground. Honestly, this is what I want to see. It is not about one strict strategy going into the last chance qualifier. No, this is about pulling out all the stops, doing whatever you can to make sure you get your ticket.
I mean, every single time we take a look at some of the games in this type of format where the only thing that matters is the win, it always entertains, right? Even though obviously the win is the only thing that matters, and there's some pop-off moments that do happen for those wins, we still get those highlights from some of these players trying to solo clutch up, or some of our duos popping off and getting 10 plus elimination games. So the entertainment is still there. The fact that the win matters so much obviously makes it just the stakes so much higher for some of our teams. And I'm sure the nerves are flowing. I'm sure everybody at home is also entertained just like we are.
So, Kelly Lake, I have a question for you. With only 2 games left to go here, and obviously, if we were to just pull up like a fake standings, right, and be like, oh wow, look at the consistency and all that, it would be awesome, but that doesn't matter, right? The only thing that matters is that victory royale.
That's right.
How do these players, come into this situation and go like, hey, I might be playing out of my mind. I might be put in these situations where, man, I'm low on surge, or we our backs are against the wall, and they're coming up with these strategies to make it as far as possible, but it's not enough to get the win. So how do we get ourselves in the mindset, or where we need to be, to try and pull out a victory royale with only 2 games left to go?
So we were just looking at Lauren Amp right there, and I think in this situation, you can't overanalyze. Actually, playing how they did was really well, and it just came down to a 2v2 where honestly you could do everything right, and then if they just get a better shot onto you, that's all you can do. So I can say, aim better, that's not really going to do too much of a difference. So in these final moments, for our teams that are able to make it to the end game every single time, I think they should just keep on sticking with what they're doing. We've already had some big names that have been kind of an issue on the high ground already make their way through. So these teams that are just so close kind of need to stick with their strategy, but maybe Vivid has a different plan in mind.
No, I really like that. Stick to what you know. Changing things up with just 2 games left to go does not leave a lot of room for adapting or kind of learning on the fly, and that's exactly what our teams need to do. They need to learn on the fly, but with what they know how to do. So if you take high ground, if we're talking about it, that game right there was the difference maker. Could have been just one refresh, because we saw in that final 2v2, one of the players going into that with like 15 total HP. They just had some minis or some extra heals, kind of make them just a little bit more healthier. I mean, it's just the difference between one refresh. So just building on what you already know works definitely is what's going to be like the highest chance of success, in my opinion.
Okay, well, Viv, I mean, I feel like some viewers may not actually know that you were a pro player at a time, right? You have been in similar type situations of high intensity where you're like, dude, we stick to it. Or, is this maybe that time, Vivid, where if you're a duo and you're not confident in that strategy, maybe you're like, dude, we just can't get those pieces together. At what point do you say, let's just throw a Hail Mary? At what point is that point? Is it now? Is it game 5?
No, I don't think Hail Marys were kind of in the playbook for me when I was playing. The practice had been done, you know what I mean? Literally, I mean, the practice had been done. You had to stick to what you knew, and you just had to go into it confident. Like, hey, listen, I practice this. I know what works for us in scrims or in past tournaments, and that's what I'm going to go with.
Zeke, I think if we had Takata here, a real old pro, then we would probably have a better insight, better analytical mindset. But unfortunately, it's just me and Vivid, so we're going to have to stick with that.
Oh, man. We've just started a little bit of a war here. Well, Fortnite fam, we're going to go away and we're going to watch Game 4 now. So let's tune in and see who can walk away with a VR. Casters, take it away.
I just want to say Vivid had like the coldest response. He basically just said, Zeke, I was so good. Last chance, don't even worry about it. I was winning everything I was touching. Jacob, what do you think we're starting to get into this. It does seem like some people might have to change things up here.
Yeah, I agree with Kelly and Vivid for the most part. You kind of stick to what's working. But if you're one of those teams in this lobby that's constantly down on surge, that's constantly getting your game dictated, that things not necessarily in your control, you have to switch things up. How drastic is up to them, whether if it's a drop spot, rotation, or how they're playing the end games. I think with only 2 games left, these players are going to start to feel the pressure of their opportunities slipping through their fingers.
Yeah, we have yet to see a heal off as well, right? A lot of teams at the end there looked like they were trying to set themselves up to go for the distance, and then they just couldn't wait. It's almost like they all lost patience because we saw 4 teams fighting for height at the end. Well, it's game number 4. It's going to get on the battle bus.
This is where things continue to get interesting. You know, we had drop spots from Jargu and Carillion that were triple contested. Well, there's not too many switches that you can go down there. And then you had QK and his duo kind of qualify out. Somebody immediately scooped up that spot. Now Chris and Drew no longer in this lobby, which kind of frees up yet another drop spot in this game. So if they do have any plans to switch things up, I'd probably start at one of those 3 POIs. As Pods, Phenom over at this drop spot. Flurry and Johans is just trying to rotate down into New Sanctuary. And a drop like this, it kind of leaves you open to those types of damage. And there goes another example here. Hefe Bob and Cyros. He gets the chest from above and immediately puts down that pressure.
This is good. You got that knock right there onto Civ. Nice and easy. Noah Blaze is barely even touching down right now. So clearly already the advantage swung into the hands of Hefe and Cyros. Cyros stops here just in case he can find some extra shields. Doesn't quite get what he was looking for, but going to be forced into Fullberry Fizz for the both of them here just to set themselves up for success. And it's not looking good for Noah Plays right now. 2 or 3 games now back to back where essentially he's been on the losing side of the exchanges. Goes for the pre-fire. Doesn't quite land it. Now it's just a matter of time.
Oh, that was a big first shot coming out of Noah Plays. Gets dropped down literally 1 HP, but the 2v1, Cyros moves in to try to alleviate some of that pressure. Noah Plays runs out of build, so he's trying to take a different approach instead of going straight in. Cyros takes the high ground, cuts off another angle for Noah, forces him down below into his old build, but he getting tagged up all along the way, trying to run as Cyros finally takes him out. Such a close, almost elimination on the Hefe that could have turned everything around. But that's going to be Cyros saving the day.
Yeah, pulling up, hitting the shots that matter. Chance and Tyler on the other side. Still struggling after their game 1 success to find their footing and really push something big on the standings right now. Battlewood Boulevard continues to be contested. You have a team to the north, team to the south. And that's in Yuz and Sharkman. Another veteran duo going up to the scene here. Meanwhile, Veer and Threat seem to have Dark Dominion to themselves right now. Everything's going according to plan here, Jacob.
Yeah, not necessarily the end games for Threats and Veer that they've hoped they would have so far, especially from an uncontested drop like this, but honestly, this is a team with so much experience. I don't think they're in a desperation mode just yet. Depending on how this one goes, we'll kind of talk about that as Day gets another elimination on Focus. Making sure Scuffies is going to be safe as well. I don't see that other solo player in the mini-map, so they did clean up both. Yes, they did. That's a full-on wipe for Day and Scuffies, and we're honestly seeing a whole different version of this team. As soon as they go back to their original drop spot, something that they do know, it seems like they're finding good off-spawn success.
Yeah, it was really interesting, right? You saw him in the last game try to play frigid and kind of mix things up and do somewhat of a split drop. This time they just go back to like what they knew originally. Day, Scuffies here coming out ahead of the pack, 2 quick elims, and now they're just in charge of this whole drop.
Gotta imagine, without taking too much damage, with his first couple of zones, Storm Surge not necessarily going to be a worry. Let's jump aboard Mythic. Truckski just kind of taking over their split drop, and this is another team that have switched things up. We saw Yuz and Sharkman go from Sandy all the way to Battlewood, and now we have these guys switching up their drop spot, taking the location from Chris and Drew, who have just qualified out of this lobby. But just because teams are qualifying out of the lobby doesn't mean the action is going to slow down any bit. We still got Painted Palm, which didn't necessarily start out as a contested POI, but it's surely ending like one.
Like this though. Scare still holding a high ground though. Just kind of looking out and about, taking the most advantage position possible over the teams that are fighting down here. Again, continue to be the thorn in their side. You know, he's done this game after game as well. You know, this is one of the few duos we've actually tuned in with out of the 3 games so far that didn't have any mid-game surge issues. So clearly going to some of the extremes of building these absurd high grounds is working for them. It's working very well, where that can't really be said for some of the other teams, like even Threats and Veer, like we talked about for a second there. They've had a bit of problem getting a nice solid footing, and a lot of it is coming down to the surge strategies not quite being good enough.
Yeah, I think Scarno said playing to their POI perfectly, because even though we have seen some north zones, I always talk about Latte Landing being one of few POIs on the map that have mobility unlike every other. So as long as they do get their early game surge, they don't have to worry about the mid game. They hit one of them fizz bombs, they throw the shockwave, and they hit that long launch pad. We saw Reet and Cooper use that strategy throughout the heats as well to really dodge a lot of the mid game. So hopefully, just like some of the other players who landed over towards Latte Landing qualifying and getting into the grand final, Scare and Osid, 2 chances left. Hopefully they don't leave it to the last game of the day. Hopefully they can find success here as Kaz's Degen quickly rotating. This team doesn't even necessarily land over towards the Frigid Fortress, but they immediately beeline their way on over towards the north to try to set themselves up with good positioning for Surge.
Seen them continue to put and poke their name out at the end games there. Could have gone to them as well. They would just time their high grounds a little bit better. Still having Liam, Smiley already based up, so they've done their loot routes. Now they're just looking for teams trying to reposition here. Taking both controls of the general terrain here. Liam calls for help, it seems, as he's caught a team rotating just now.
Yeah, I like the idea of what they're doing here. Just kind of, like you were saying, spread out on 2 different locations. They get a wider view of where players are rotating in, more chance to get surge tags, but once more and more teams rotate in, it just becomes a little bit too risky to stay that far separated from one another. Lethal and Wolf here kind of switching up their drop spots throughout the day, going to the south side of the map this time around. And again, as long as they have been able to control the tempo of how much surge they've been able to get, they're inside of the zone, so they don't necessarily have to worry about these early zones.
Early zones always going to cause issues for some, especially if they're on the outskirts. We've already seen teams get caught in the storm rotating into mending machines, getting read like a book. It's at AXL and Rubby just kind of sitting on one right now, but they're more than safe here at the moment, so should be good. Off they go. Try to find themselves a little bit of action, possibly on the edge of the storm.
Game, just like in a few of the games we've seen so far, moving a little bit slower, but once we got that storm surge that does appear, depending on how far above or how far below that actual threshold you have, really starts to dictate how much freedom you have in your own game plan. After you see airs, momentum, just immediately trying to position in. The only team they really have to worry about is that one that's on that natural massive rock right behind them. Other than that, they can look behind, see if they can find any teams rotating in, try to land some damage, but I know that team above them can be spotted out from far away, so it might deter some teams from rotating in this direction.
Saw that one end game finish by that mountainous terrain. See if we get some different visuals for this game. Meanwhile, Noxy Angel, a little edit course in the box, trying to stay fired up here. Still has opponents off to the side, so these two teams haven't clashed against one another, but they have continued to eye each base up. Kaz and Degen go for the monster space inside the Frigid Fortress, so that's quite the play. Meanwhile, look at this. Trying to line up the 3-2-1 onto Amplify, missed their opportunity. You have Highlands Loris just off to the side as well. And there it is, Loris walks out, but no shot landed, so Stax and Cosmo actually missed the ambush. They're going to end up regretting that one. No damage earned there.
Yeah, almost feels like their initial plan maybe move on over towards that mending machine. That way they can buy the med kits or the patch up depending on what's available. But now they can kind of do neither. Didn't get the damage, didn't get any extra HP. Just kind of have to go on like it never happened for the most part. As Tyler Chance make their way on over towards Bush. Spotted out at the last second. Luckily for them, no shots are going to connect. But they're going to wait here on the edge. They've already been rotating from the same direction. So they have a little bit of an idea of how many teams are rotating in the zone behind them. They're just waiting these next couple of seconds to see where it actually pulls, to see what their game plan is. And it's actually not too far away. So instead of pulling towards the north like a few of the games we've seen so far, it does look like we're going to have a middle towards south side zone.
Yeah, Chance and Tyler have, again, been contested against that team this entire time. So now they're going back into the storm. We'll keep an eye on the feed. Possibly even a little replay to see what happens there. Back on over to Wave and Amen. We saw their clash. go well for them. This is a team that was being very much defensive and passive in their box fight, but in the end it paid off just well as they caught their moment. Now they're looking down towards the Dark Dominion. You can see there's still a few teams lurking about.
Yeah, looks like Threats and Veer no longer there. Probably trying to rotate out. And honestly, typical of games, especially as it moves around, whether if it goes towards the west like we've seen in previous games or towards the east. Dark Dominion, a bunch of metal resource there for teams that might not be able to accumulate that throughout the course of the game, or might have had to use it for some early game fights for survival. But it gives Wave and Amine just a little bit of an advantage here. Those teams by no means have to rotate out of Dark Dominion, but if it continues to pull towards the east, eventually they will. And that'd be a good opportunity for them to try to get some damage there. But Storm Surge is finally going to turn on in this game, and we really get to see how teams have been progressing throughout. And for Maniac and Anonia, they're almost 600 above the damage threshold. There's almost no reason for them to peak here.
Yeah, there goes the Shockwave play. You talk about not needing to peak too much. 500 above the threshold. We haven't seen many teams be this well situated as far as ones that haven't been performing as well in the end game. So this is really good for Anon and Maniac right now. That Waffle Joe though just went from, oh, the team rotated away to who just landed on us. Chaos and Aim from the Storm coming in with a vengeance right now. Also above the Surge, but still getting greedy. See what they can fish up for tags and fights here. They don't get rewarded. Instead, they get Waffle Joe just pressuring them now, hot on their heels.
This is tough because we already saw Amine and his duo inside of the zone. You can kind of see it on the mini-map. They're just looking back this entire time, disrupting this, getting little wins in terms of landing. Even if it's a minute amount of damage, it's accumulating all into their total. For Storm Surge's Aim lurking, trying to peek through a little bit of crevice. Doesn't get the initial shot, but gets a flank onto Aiden. Big damage coming out. And back to back, Waffle Joe tries to be the hero, ends up the zero. Aim and Chaos Gaming. If there's any moment in a match that boosts your momentum and confidence for Aim and Chaos, that has to be it.
Yeah, I was starting to load up the sayings, you know, you're about to get what you're looking for. You're going to bite off more than you can chew. But nope, none of that was needed. Chaos Gaming did exactly what they needed to, and they got what they wanted. A nice little 2v2, and then they close it out, and they come out ahead without really exchanging too much material or anything. So it ends up working well. Waffle Joe, you're probably thinking twice about how that all played out, unfortunately, but... Moving on over to Sandman, up 14 right now, who have already found themselves inside the zone. I like the high ground positioning here. They're looking down and pressuring onto the opponent teams all around here, and this is overall pretty good right now.
Yeah, and you can see like everybody now just playing as defensive as possible, because, you know, if you're one of those 14 individual players or full duos that got eliminated out of this game, you're just kind of forced to watch. You have one chance left, and your entire FN season depends on it, because again, it's not only for grand finals next week, it's for the chance at the Major 1 Summit LAN, and then on top of that, Monster, it's a chance at the Global Championship. So there's so much on the line here for today, and in these last two games, these opportunities are going by fast. And for Slate, they do already have the focus of the lobby on their attention. They're already 200 plus above the damage threshold, and it's getting even worse here. They essentially need 2 full eliminations worth of damage.
Yeah, it's starting to add up, and it's going to continue to rack up as other teams start tagging them right now. Pressure coming in from behind, from the side, from the opposite angle, but Flores Amplify take advantage of the late rotate. They get delivered the damage they were looking for, and it just buys them a little bit of relief right now. Oh, here comes another team desperate as well. They see what's all happening here, and although the zone's on top of them, I mean, they will have to welcome this fight here.
Yeah, and even though they did get the damage that you were talking about, Amplify took a haymaker of a punch right to the face, and he just got his shield dropped down. So it's not necessarily good for them in terms of overall Storm Surge. You saw them trying to jump barely above that damage threshold, which is fine for now. But if they don't get proactive and get that damage, they're going to be below the threshold in these next couple of zones. And that's why you see Day and Scuffies, even though they're positioned on towards the edge, they know so many teams have yet to make their rotation in, and this is a prime opportunity for them to build themselves a little bit of a cushion.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to think about that you can end up engaging on someone, getting the elim because their health was low, but they hit you with so much damage, you end up net negative. So that's kind of what happened there. I haven't quite put that into perspective for myself just yet this weekend, but yeah, that's unfortunate.
Goes to show that not every fight is going to be worth it, and you can kind of see where they stand after said fight. 54 above the damage threshold. 15 seconds, we'll go from 6th zone into the 7th zone, and that's where we're going to refresh. We get to the next threshold of players that do need to go down until eventually it turns off altogether when we get down to 40 players left alive. But as we see, from 54 above for 17 below. And honestly, they really shouldn't be too worried because they are in the middle of that path where teams have to rotate in. But now I might have been wrong because it's active surge. They're on the clock here for sure.
Oh yeah, just slipping below the threshold now. 2 elims, not going to be cutting it, given that the teams that they picked those up on were definitely weakened. Look at this, they're right dead center, like in the middle of all of this here. You need to start opening up some edits or looking for something soon. You know, Flowberry misses, of course, allow them to stay relatively healthy and take a few tags here before they have to bust a move. Oh, a little knock right below them. They heard something go down. They don't know that there's an opportunity there, but DJ fights back. And a monstrous shot right onto Loris there. And this is a worst case scenario now. Amplify getting tagged here. Weakened builds are going to expose them to the rest of the lobby. And even though they have so many heals, Loris also had 2 of the 3 Flowberry fizzes. Now, Amplify does get back to it, though. So, okay, Degen didn't quite get to secure the loot. This is still in the pocket for Amplify right now, but Degen's on him. He's pushing into the box. He's playing aggressive, but Amplify comes out ahead here. And unfortunately, the price he paid, Jacob, was his teammate.
Yeah, that is actually so tough right now for Amplify because even after winning and surviving against Degen, he's 185 below, but he does have that Mythic Combat AR, which will shred not only through players but builds as well, but he's getting chopped down below. He has to be careful from all angles because teams will start to figure out that he is a solo and try to break into the box. But from one zone to the next, 189, still below that damage threshold. Storm Surge will reactivate yet again every 7 seconds, but he's not looking to get desperate. He has 5 Chug Splashes. He has a little bit left on the Chug Jug itself and a rotation to make where teams are going to use those shockwaves to get through.
Yeah, there it is. He's going to shockwave early as well here. Goes for the low ground instead of playing the height with all the material that he's got. Not sure how I feel about it, but onto layer he goes. Misses the shot. That matters, and then gets tagged in the back. 140 damage below. 9 players still have to go down, and he's forced to use what's left of the little bit of heals that he did have in the tank there. Now looking for an edit. Plenty of weak players everywhere. Just pull out that Mythic and get to work is what I need to see right now, Jacob.
Yeah, spray into the box, just hope for the best. 83, luckily he's using somebody else's fizz, but he jumps around along with the shockwave, lands another big shot. Amplify truly trying to do everything he can to stay alive, but we go from solos to duos. You're talking about putting your foot down. Well, Osid and Scare, they have consistent top finishes in this game, including a second, but first place is the only one that matters.
And those are some key eliminations onto Chance and Tyler, 2 very experienced players. So you took out arguably some of the toughest competition right now that's remaining in this lobby. But then you have Nut and Sandman, who are, again, very good as well, holding the high ground here. Osid, Scare are just about due for a win, though. We'll see if they be the first to contest here, or what time, if any, they end up coming up. They're still eyeing up that 2nd to 3rd layer there. Meanwhile, Vera and Threats have made another endgame. They got past their trouble zone, which has been essentially the mid game. The mid game's been very hard for them, and this is the strongest we've seen them in the end.
Yeah, and hopefully they can kind of pull it through and execute here. They're using that time and effort to try to regenerate as much HP and shield as possible. Same thing for Scare and Osid, though. 3 eliminations. They're just saving that shockwave. They're moving slowly but surely along with the zone. Sandman and Nut, they're going to re-solidify it. And this is a feeling of deja vu for sure, because we've already seen in previous games Nut and Sandman on the high ground. But Osid and Scare, they're floating so far back. We know that shockwave play is just around the corner.
No way. Scuffies and Day are actually here as well, making their way into an endgame. This is the first big one we've seen them appear in, and although it was looking great for threats, it is not looking good anymore. Forced to use all his splashes, loses teammate, and even now, sitting right behind the wall while Danger lurks nearby. He finds one, can't quite get the second to get the full finish there, and both of those players will slip out, just barely, but they're still alive.
Yeah, looking to survival here. Osid and Scare, they haven't really looked up towards that high ground just yet. Just waiting. We saw it come in the 11th zone, in the 12th zone in the past couple games, but they look forward. They got another elimination. They grab up all that loot. Just a little bit makes the world go round, but Nut and Sandman, they finally get chopped down to equal playing field. Nobody is solidified as the high ground team anymore. In fact, they're going through all that mess. Nut getting dropped down to just HP. Sandman trying to be the hero. They're elevating themselves again to try to be the team on hype, but Scuffies and Day are also battling for it. Osid and Scare, they just cleared out that mid layer as well.
Osid with a huge refresh right now. That was 2 back-to-back. And look at this. They're down to just a singular build on height. Sandman trying to do what he can to just lead his team across the side here. Boji on the low ground. He's going to go and get fizzled out there to the zone. And it might just come down to the clash from the high ground and the low ground, but it's all going to be about the timing. Day and Scuffies are fired up right now. Northern is someone who has definitely been in these intense situations before. So we really do have great teams still in the running.
Yeah, and you see Osid, Scared, just kind of waiting, crouched down, lurking around, waiting for somebody to make a mistake. Day and Scuffies doing the same thing, but they're further back in the zone, so they have a little bit of catching up to do. Cosmo's a solo, trying to go and solidify the high ground. He has so many builds compared to everybody else down below, but we're in the 12th and final zone. Time is running out. Everybody is sending it towards that high ground. Day and Scuffies, they're the kings on top of the castle for now, though. They've sent Cosmo down below, and this is the only chance they have to try to put pressure on the only duos remaining. Sandman loses Nut, so already they're feeling the effectiveness of that pressure.
Zero builds as well. You can hear the rotates right behind the wall, but Osid doesn't actually make the peak there. Scuffies and Day find the elimination. The zone is just eating them alive right now. Meanwhile, it's like a repeat for Chris and Drew's team as they're just sitting down low, healing while all this stuff's going on and just letting the high ground teams take the fight. There it is. Osid, Scare finally secure another elimination, and that's the refresh they were looking for.
I'm sure Day or one of them went down to the actual zone, trying to give up the resources, but it doesn't work out. Cosmo, the only solo, is trying to go up. He has the fizz. He's trying to disrupt. He has to climb up anyway. We're going past that mountain. Big shot on the Scare. Shockwaves as well. Osid and Scare get flying towards the zone, but they return back. They back and back at it again. Scare gets the elimination. Osid is now down. 9 eliminations, 1v1. No extra heals. Him versus Northern. It's all on the line, and Scare clutches up to the grand finals.
And you brought the energy for that one. That's exactly what they needed right there. Osid and Scare couldn't have timed it best, and that was by far the best game we have seen so far. And we knew it was only gonna be a matter of time. Zeke, that was a great game 4.
Bro, that was such a crazy shot to take. Just think about this for a moment. The chaotic nature. You're like, okay, hey, everything's fine. Oh, what's that? We're shocked wave in his zone. Okay, chaos ensues. To take a fight, to push them in zone, to take the left-hand peek, Kelly Link. Confidence. Confidence.
I would love to say that this, like, the story building throughout the entire game, but I think the story's been building throughout this entire last chance lobby. Scare and Osid have been trying out so many different things, trying out so many different little strategies to make their way into the final moments. And they've been there. They've been at the end game every single time. And to see them biding their time in the mid ground, just grabbing refreshes when they can, waiting for high ground to have just enough chaos for them to go up themselves and then to get launched away. But really what stood out to me was that Scare was able to get back in zone, Vivid, but Osid knew that he didn't have the opportunity to go back in, so he stays in Storm, trying to get shots off on anyone else to make sure that his teammate can stay alive, and it just works out.
So many things to break down for game number 4. Obviously, the highlight being Osid and Scare, like Kelly mentioned, the little tweak to the strategy. They've already proven today multiple times that they've got the strategy down. They know how to actually take the high ground. That one little tweak that I was kind of talking about, right? Sticking to their game plan. The one tweak that they needed to make was when they actually went for it. I can't believe I'm saying this, but we had a high ground this game where Nut and Sandman were allowed up there for like 3 zones in a row. Nobody looked up, nobody contested them, and all of a sudden 12th zone comes around and everybody goes up. Osid and Scare, they happen to choose the best time for it. They almost threw that overdrive grenade, sending them both in the storm. Had to be a little worried, but the clutch came in at the end. They're going to Grants.
I just cannot believe that shot at the end, dude. I mean, literally pickaxe the wall, swap the shotgun, and just pray. And it was good. Oh my gosh. Congratulations to the duo. Friends, that means we only have one game. Just one game left to go. For now, a break. I'm going to go off screen. I'm going to be stressed. I'll see you guys in just a minute. Okay? All right. We'll see you after this break.
No love songs, just a walk by. This is my world, watch me arrive. Watch me arrive. Watch me arrive. Watch me arrive. Yeah, 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 yeah. I'm bouncing back now. Yeah, 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 yeah. I can't hold it back. Yeah, I'm bouncing back. These mountains, I'll tow 'em. Those pebbles, I'll roll 'em. No bridges, I'm claiming peaks while you're plateauing. I flag for my city, not really, just kidding. 90 tags they taking from me. This one right here is only for me. My power's so raw, you're living it. I bet you bet on my odds. If I had to fly, slides dissolve the minute I got on my bed. Don't need your sense or your consent to give it 100%. Cause I'm a beast, so lower your head. I rise, I ascend. Say you want it all, if you want it all. Make a move, don't stop and wonder. Gotta take it out, cause I want it all. Though I stumble, I'll keep bouncing back. Take a step, cause I've been bouncing back. Yeah, I'm bouncing back. Yeah, I'm bouncing back. I keep coming back. I can't hold it back. Yeah, I'm bouncing back. It's just a mission. I do them in my sleep, no commission. I like a side quest, love opposition. With surgical precision, they make losing their tradition. Yeah, they talk, but what they say to me, I'm chewing it all, sitting my jaw, the way that I hurt you to think. I'm building a wall, 90s tall between you and me. I'm out of space, you're out of peace. It's a different game when I'm out of league. Say you want it all, if you want it all. Make a move, don't stop and wonder. Gotta take it out, cause I want it all. No, I stumble, I'll keep bouncing back. Take your cap, take your step, take a step, cause I've been back. Oh, just like that. I beat you in, crank up back to back. Oh, just like that. I see a dub in my future stats. Oh, I know a place you can go. The doghouse outside my massive abode. It's lovely, it's cushy, and sometimes it's cold. And watch me get this gold. I'll bounce back. I just want it all. I just want it all. I'm gonna bounce. I'm gonna bounce back. Said you want it all. But you want it all. Said you want it all. I'll bounce back. Said you want it all. But you want it all. I can have it all. If you knock me down, I'll move to the floor. I just got back home. I'll bounce back. I just want it all. I just want it all.
Okay. Welcome back to the FNCS. This is the LCL, the last chance lobby. One game right now will decide it all for many players in this lobby. This is it. If players are trying to make it to finals, this is their shot. And on top of that, if that wasn't stressful enough, there's also a chance at finals to make it to the summit, where you can look to auto-qualify for Global Championship later on this year. Stress all-time high, but it's okay. We got Kelly, we got Vivid here, our best friends. They're going to talk us through some things that we're seeing, kind of prepare us, calm me down. It's going to be a great time. So Kelly, Vivid, out of that last game, what did you guys feel went well? Obviously, Scare OSID finally got themselves a VR, as we called out before going to break. If anyone deserved it, it felt like them. But now they're out, right? So now they've moved on. So we have to look at the rest of the lobby and ask ourselves, who could walk away and win?
I mean, if we look at the teams at the Zen Games, I swear we're seeing the same names over and over again, albeit
true.
4 of those teams have now gone on to their grand finals. But one of the names, Caliper and Northern, they were sticking to the low ground right there and doing a pretty good job, almost playing disruptor to some of our big names like Scare and OSID, who were kind of sticking down to the end game, or to the low ground in that end game until the very final moments. And speaking of final moments, it did come down to Northern versus Scare right there.
Difference being just one singular shotgun shot. And you got to think about the advantageous right hand peek right there. So it's going to be kicking himself, but he's got to gear back up for game number 5. Another team that has to gear themselves back up for game number 5. It's going to be Nut and Sandman. We have seen this team multiple times today up on the high ground. Game number 4 was definitely the best one so far. That being, I mean, Kelly, when did they take high ground? 8 zone, 9 zone? I mean, they were up there for so long, just simply uncontested. I was like, oh my gosh, listen, when I go live, you know, I'm going to talk about how this game was completely different and nobody went for high ground and Nut and Sandman just won the game because nobody looked up. And then 12 zone happened and there were like 7 different changes of which team was up on the high ground. So again, Nut and Sandman, I feel like they were just so close. They just ran out of those resources, those materials at the very last moment.
And I will say, from all the teams we've seen have high ground stolen away from them, Nut and Sandman handled that one of the best that we've seen out of all of the games. They were able to drop down, able to recover themselves. But unfortunately, when it comes down to the final 5 teams, Zeke, there's only so much you can do without people kind of staring at you and taking a few shots. So I think Sandman, Nut played that well. I don't even know if necessarily trying to take high ground later would have even been better for them, because they were kind of just in shambles as far as their loadout goes by zone 10 anyway.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think maybe we'll see them do kind of what maybe Scare and OSID did, where they change it up, they delay it just a little bit, maybe wait for another team to try and steal height first before they go at themselves.
Okay. A minute left to go before we launch into the final game of LCL. Also wanted to highlight here just really quickly, we saw Day kind of have a moment here on high ground, and I thought, yo, this is a really good spot. Look at this loadout. Look at their mats. I mean, they have things to work with here, and then it just didn't quite pan out.
Yeah, you know, I think their loadout looks great if they're trying to go for consistency, but for the win, although it does look good, having just a little bit of builds is only going to do so much. No one's going to care for heals when you get eliminated just like that, Vivid.
Yeah, we were really surprised. It was like, oh my gosh, how did they make a mistake right there? How did it go down to the Storm? If you were paying attention, Storm sickness. I think it caught him off guard. It caught us off guard. That replay is actually what was going to bring it to my attention right there. He was taking so much damage. I don't even think he realized it. So definitely unfortunate. That could have panned out completely differently if a little mistake like that didn't happen. But that's what Fortnite's all about. Just one mistake can change the whole game. Not even for yourself, but everybody else playing.
Oh man, well, Fortnite fam, this is it. Last game out of the LCL. This is the player's moment. This is a do or die situation. This is, we get a Victory Royale, or we're waiting until Major 2 if we want to run that FNCS dream back. And a summit on top of that. Pressure on pressure on pressure for the last time today. MDF Jacob, take it away.
Z couldn't have said it any more perfect. What is on the line here in this last and final game really decides the next couple of months when it comes to playing in FNCS or watching and waiting on the sidelines. This one's going to be good.
Yeah, and we've had this story talking about how this is the year of the new guard. This is the year of all these new, fresh up-and-comers coming through, playing well. Let's see if they can do it for game number 5.
Whether you're an up-and-coming new player to the spotlight, or somebody that's been here for years, one thing I know for sure, pressure either bursts pipes or makes diamonds, and there's only one final team left in this lobby that will get an opportunity to shine bright. And honestly, at this stage in the game, I almost don't know who it is. We've had so many close calls, second places, third places from teams and juggernaut teams that we thought would be a shoe-in, but this is like an any given Sunday, in this case Tuesday situation of this is why we play the games out.
Yeah, I mean, even Chance and Tyler in that last game came so close, but unfortunately, they just came up against a hot Osid and Scare, who were on a tear right there and caught him in the mid game. There are still very much players that, like you mentioned, are veterans that are highly skilled. Threats and Veer are still in the lobby as well. Obviously, you have the likes of Day and Scuffies, who almost pulled through there in the end. That unfortunate Storm Surge there. We keep highlighting that Storm Surge has been a problem for different teams now. And yeah, staying into the zone and getting that Storm Sickness is definitely not the way. And look at this, Noah plays Civ. Actually switch things up right now. Go for the early touchdown. They did not like losing Civ early before. So now, was taking things into his own hands.
Yeah, this is something I was kind of noticing throughout the course of the day. You know, you kind of look at a team like Acorn and Bolts, the blueprint for a drop like this. No matter who's going there, whether it's Peterbot, Poyo, Josh, Niamzo, they 50-50 these top chests because you could easily get an early advantage. Noah plays Civ. They weren't necessarily doing that throughout the course of today. The one time they do it, they almost get that first drop. Luckily for them, on the other side, they're able to kind of move down the side of the mountain. Hefe, Bob, and Cyros have been granted a second chance here in Game 5.
Gotta come back and do what you can with your last opportunities now. Grand Finals, of course, riding on it. Your drive, your opportunity to hit the land, also riding on it as well. Veer and Threats have the Dark Dominion now pretty much completed to themselves here, continuing to kind of figure out their early game strategy. They've only gotten better game after game. Whatever they did last round, though, to figure out that early Storm Surge, they have to do again, right? That has been their problem, the mid games, making it to end game. Last game, it was looking so good before Veer got dropped on the less. Then it rotate there.
You almost kind of tell it's like a whole different feel in a lobby like this, especially when this is your last chance. Wave and Amen. We saw phenomenal plays throughout the course of that last game, them barely able to survive. Well, now you got to have that happen yet again. Phenom is hot on the chase, and Lightning does not strike twice for them. Phenom and Pods are going to not only get that elimination, get all that loot, and they have a good surrounding land now that they can kind of call their own and farm up. And back on over to this side of the mountain. A fight we knew would break down. It's only a matter of time. Civ and Noah plays. They have the elevation advantage here, even the Harpoon to try to break through the builds, but they have to be careful because Cyros and Hefe are doing a good job of fighting back from down below.
Well, Jacob, I hate to say it. This is Game 5, and I see a lurking team off to the west here. They hear the shots, and they're actually positioning for the high ground right now. They might just stick around and actually third party the winners of this fight. Before we get there, though, we have D-Block Debo and Eiko right now. They're fighting for Wonky Land. Arguably the strongest drop.
Another POI that's kind of changing up how they're approaching the situation, because when there was 3 teams here, yes, they did fight it out. When it got dropped down to 2 teams contesting it, they were looking to split the drop for the most part. But now you're in the last and final game. You're seeing what the pressure is doing to some of these teams, saying, hey, we cannot continue to split. They feel like they need all the loot for themselves, and that's why they're approaching it with a different amount of aggression. But just like the fights atop the mountain, you have to be careful. Third parties can make their way over. But for Debo, Akko, they're just trying to sit here down below. They're running out of materials. Everything is getting burned through here on their resources. So right now, if they don't start to act quick, they might be out of builds.
We'll see if it ends up going to distance here. D-Block, Debo running out of time now. There goes Zero Mess that we just called out. Eiko not even in position to share some with his teammate. He's just holding it down right now. CR's got him also pinned here. Debo now popping a Chug Jug. I mean, they're putting up a good fight for what it's worth, but yeah, not having material is obviously keeping them on the timer right now.
Yeah, it's just getting tougher and tougher too. Just kind of looking at their loadout. They don't really have much, and yeah, you're doing good of trying to pressure the team and in essence, intimidate them to shockwave out and disengage, but gotta wonder what this is doing to the overall Storm Surge and what it's really looking like as Akko continues to lurk around down below. Really just kind of baiting his teammate. You can see they're putting down fire. They're pressuring them while they can. So Akko's just trying to lurk around. So far, he finds success with that first shot. But lurk after lurk all around the map. All the tricks come out from underneath people's sleeves.
This is a good one for Bodrov and Slate here. Actually finding the nice big elim to get to retake this Surge base, if you want to call it that. And now start looking towards the coast. Trying to figure out, hey, what were you looking at, buddy? What you had going on back here?
They've had some success in this game so far. Slate and his duo have been able to get at least up into an 8th place, so they do have the recipe not only to make it to the end game, but get in one of those final 8 teams. And with a couple of heavy hitters out of this lobby already, with their tickets punched to the grand finals, hopefully that eases up a lot of the tension and pressure that a lot of teams are going through here. But that kind of puts that decision in your head. Do you go for the high ground late? Is it 8th zone? Is it 12th zone? We've seen a mixture of both throughout the day. Back on over to Wonky Land, where neither one of these teams look like they want to give it up just yet. Not only do you have the mending machines, the mini game that's there, but you can also use the Wonky Wheel to try to rotate if the zone continues to max pull towards the south.
There's Boji jumping into the box, finding Yo 5 right there. The finish for the Siphon to keep him in the race. Not bad at all. They get the 2 eliminations here at the Sandy Strip. And remember, every team that falls now, your chance at the Major 1 Grand Finals is officially come to a close and it's over. This is the last game of the evening now. It's all going to come down to this. So Cyrus and Hefe reinitiating the fight now this time. They're the ones calling the shots here on day. Stood around a little too long here at the drop.
Kind of interesting from Cyrus and Hefe because they already went through a disengaged fight at the top of the mountain against Noah Plays and his duo, and now they're just approaching Wonky Land. Again, probably looking for resource here since most of it was split between them and a whole nother team. Damage, possibly a bonus, but timing here is going to be crucial because the longer and longer you stay here, the higher chances of you getting storm sickness, and that already has proven to play a huge role as we saw in that last game.
Yeah, most definitely. And it just creeps up on you, right? That stone sickness at the very end. There's no way for you to really tell kind of how close you are to it. But, you know, for CR and Day here, I mean, they go from fighting one team and then, like, obviously right into this one. So not quite catching a break just yet. Noxie, Angel continue to play that split hold on these mountains here. And the zone continues to come this way. So a little bit of favoritism so far. This time they have Amplify and Loriz.
Amplifying Lords, it's got to be a heartbreaking scenario. 2nd place, especially when it was over towards their drop at Squibbly. You don't get very many opportunities like that, but you do get one more opportunity here in Game 5. They're close by. Angel Noxie has some distance between him and his teammate, so in split second, things could change if they're feeling daring enough, but you and I both know, usually up until a Storm Surge actually pops to really let the players know where they stand in the overall game, you'd like to see a little passive play here. 78 still alive, so a little bit more aggressive, but not by much.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, again, every team that, of course, qualifies through now opens up the world, puts a little bit more loot on the map, just generally a net positive. So this last game, we do anticipate to go into somewhat of a slow roll, as everyone has the weight on their shoulders to play for a win right now. Should be no unnecessary battles being taken here. We have Bluff and Snakes right now, still sticking around the Sandy Strip here, so I'm gonna camp this vending machine for the most part. Look at this. You have now the collapse coming in from all angles.
And Snakes and Bluff, they're one of the teams that actually stayed together from their heats up until here. Throughout the day, they've already got a 13th and 19th, obviously. A little far away from that first place, but it shows the progression in their game plan. That was actually a big shot for that elimination there over towards Sandy Strip. They not only get all those resources, but you saw his gold count increase just a little bit. You can pass it on over to your teammates, and then depending on what spawns at the menu machine, whether it's a medkit, patch up, or if you get blessed with the Chug Jug or splashes, they definitely do have options here in the 5th and final game of the day.
Take a look at that shot one more time. 148 is crazy from that range. That's why Tito just dipped on his teammate there. No need to stick around at that point. Cosmo, Stacks, they were listening in. Not interested in sticking around for nothing here at the Riptides.
Surprised that truck is even still there, but utilizing resources that are going to be left behind. You're seeing kind of everybody on this side of the map take a slower approach. The zone is pulling towards the south, kind of centering up, maybe an eastern lean on it, but they know timing is too pressing now for them. You see how close they actually are to the zone moving in. So as long as they have med kit splashes or anything to recuperate that HP, they'll be fine and dandy. It doesn't look like it's going to be too stacked. It is relatively early on in this game, fourth zone, and that's why you see Maniac, Anonia, everybody's just kind of replenishing the builds that they were missing. Sometimes when you kind of rotate in from the farthest point of the map, you try to play safe, but you spend so many materials, so it's good for them to be able to stop, pause, and farm up before they continue on.
Waffle Joe, Aiden, still in the storm right now, as well as pushing relatively quickly here. All right, it's looking pretty good for them. They already have one. Just have to close this out and not take too much damage here. But Aiden in a bad spot, but Waffle Joe with an excellent little side tag there onto Focus. Does the trick. You know, this is another team that, of course, can pull in the victory. See, Noah's played. Okay, so Noah and Civ actually do survive the drop. You know, I was really concerned after seeing that second and third team kind of show up on the outskirts, but it does seem like everyone gave them a little chance. And this is the first time Noah has actually been able to play into a mid-game so far today.
Yeah, I think he spotted out because he was the high ground of those teams fighting. He might have spotted them out in the distance, easily shockwaved away, and sometimes it's better to stray away from one fight so you can live to fight another. For now, they hear the reboots going off, using that as a distraction while they're focused on trying to read down that player that is respawning back in the game. They quickly try to shockwave to cover distance, get into the zone. And this is the stage of the game where I feel like it's very, very crucial to try to prioritize your rotations to zone. Because if you're in the back, just like Snakes is, just like Buff is, and you don't have Storm Surge, the game is essentially being played for you in terms of decisions.
Look at the zone. There's so many teams here. There's a fight happening like pretty much northwest of the Sanctuary. They have a team just landing on the outskirts here. Snakes and Bluff forced to pretty much utilize their critical heals here. Maniac and Onia, though, no breaks here for them either. They go from one battle, farming up in the tunnel, straight into the other, so they were chased on their rotate after shockwaving. That team has not let them go. It's Saya and Sky, same team that saw them exit the tunnel. Just continue to pressure them here.
Uh-oh. Now they really have no choice. Whether if it's that team that they're following now or somebody else that ends up in the path, they're 69 below the damage threshold. They need Surge, and they still got more rotation to make. So they're going to have to start to figure out plan A, plan B, and plan C if things just continuously don't work out for them. But they're just going to focus on rotating in before they go for Surge. They still got more of a journey to go. They don't want to hit too many speed bumps along the way, but there are other teams rotating in, and they're falling further and further below, now in the triple digits.
I was going to say, I know they don't want to stop and fight, but they might not have a choice. This zone's closing in 8 seconds, and they need damage now. Sky Saya still looking. Find a little baby tag onto Liam, but it's not going to do much for them right now. Instead, the lobby's going to go ahead and turn on them here. And there it is. They do make it to the new zone. Well, Sky had 3 big shields. Saya's just got the med kit to work with.
That's what I was wondering, though. Is Storm Surge going to activate? And yes, it is. If you are below the damage threshold every 7 seconds, 25 damage will tick, whether it's on shield or HP. And while although teams in the distance don't hear that you're being affected by Surge, up until the point where your shield actually cracks, that's going to be the biggest audio cues. You see Sandman hiding around the corner, but he gets spotted out. A huge shot. But he saw Sandman was already weak, so they're still going to be below the threshold.
I'm just thinking to myself, what was he doing? He's just listening to them take a little bit of damage or something in there. But look at this. Someone lands into the box, and after losing a teammate, Maniac actually just gets melted by Saya. And luckily, they do have the Slappy to save the game, but no, Sky gets finished before he can actually back up his teammate there. He's got to get the Siphon, though. definitely. Or the follow-up, but no, Annonia is just playing a little bit sharper. And Annonia will get the finishes. Does lose their teammate, though, in the process, unfortunately, there. And in the distance, Noah, Civ here. Hear all that happens, and they're happy to still be in the game. Somehow, they've done enough with the damage thus far. They've been able to manage things.
And you kind of think, you know, 31 teams up, 58 players, which means there's about 4 or 5 now players running around here as solos. That's got to be an immense amount of pressure that they're feeling. Kaz is Degen saving the day against Liam. Storm Surge is on, so I just kind of figure in most of these fights that are being pushed, it's got to be some way, shape, or form by the cause of actual Storm Surge. Day and Scuffies this time around. Not only do they pull Zone Monster, they are looted up in their materials, and they are already on the high ground. So we talk about sometimes being too early. Well, what if it gets gifted to you?
There's no way, though. It just seems like after they switched up their drop, like all of a sudden now everything is just starting to come together.
Those little decisions here. They land towards the north, things don't work out, but Zone's going towards the north. They switch it up back to familiarity, that little split drop at the bottom right-hand portion of the map. They get back there, not only they pull Zone, they're going to try to extend outward, keep it intact for now, but you're seeing so many teams trying to shockwave on others jumping on others, and trying to build some form of high ground. That little mountain there, it's not drastic by any means, but it's definitely going to play a role in teams finding success in their rotations. But Civ and Noah, 432, over 2 full eliminations here. Even if they take down Cirque, Rubby, they're still going to be below that damage threshold by 225.
This is crazy. Noah's so risky. Goes into the storm just to see if he can find something. And it's only going to be a little bit of match with a rotate. And no! The pressure kicks in. And he sends himself flying back. Civ falls to the zone there. Couldn't make the edit in time. Just like that, it is down to 10 HP for Noah. I was going to say, though, before that happened, I'm looking at Day and them playing the high ground. And, I mean, they're committing all that material right now, Jacob, and that might actually set them back, unfortunately. Like, it's very early. We've seen it rarely work out when you try to build from that high up.
Especially that early into the game. See if it works out for them. They're going to really have to be looking for eliminations here.
I think it bounced back for them.
Yeah, put down pressure. I think the next best thing for them is pressure. Get everybody down below on that second height to burn through their materials. But nobody's even emerging as the second height team just yet. So they're waiting their time. Over 1,000 above the threshold. Doesn't look like they're going to hold on to it. Build. Scuffy's got the shockwave out. So they're going to let teams rotate in the zone, build up, and they're going to hopefully try to land on top and keep their high ground secured.
So far, so good. Degen, though, also left by himself. So we saw Noah, unfortunately, fall there. His run's over. Now it's up to Degen here. No shield, 48 HP, and a shockwave with a dream. But no, he gets sent out backwards there. So unfortunately, could he get sent too far in? Meanwhile, Threats and Veer buying their time once again into another endgame here. The last one fell a little short. This one looking a bit better as he sees a knock player right in front of him. Goes up. It's the finish, and now trying to get Aiden as well there. The loot falls to low ground. This is the greed that you read about, but Veer is willing to fight for it.
Yeah, I almost feel like in the back of their heads, they might need it. You can see Threats at peace, running low on those hard materials, just trying to gain them back. Scuffy's Day, they give up that high ground. You probably have the same thought as they did. Might be too early. We can return back up here later on in the game with those shockwaves. 21 teams still alive. If this mattered, it would be placement point haven for a lot of these teams, but it's only the win that moves you into the grand finals. And that's why you think you see so many teams dropping down low. They don't want to be a part of the chaos that is the high ground.
Scan Duffy's still looking good here. Stuffy's mats is now about halfway through. Meanwhile, high ground, Highlands, Oak, and Electro go back up for height now. There's still 40 mats, so this is not too bad as far as like what you have to work with. And the Combat SAR is also looking really good right now. So they have pressure in the loadout. Angel Noxy still alive. Day loses Scuffy's on the rotate there, and now he's down to just a singular mat. So this is all just come crashing down for Havoc and Vibes. We try to check in with them to see how things were looking, and it's looking pretty rough down low.
Yeah, I think if you're a solo here, you're really starting to feel the pressure. Hands probably getting sweaty as it is, but for Day, he has the experience, multi-time FNCS champion, but how much does that really matter? 2 builds left, trying to make his way in. Ulk from the high ground gets the elimination, drops down to pick up the builds, and that could truly be the difference maker. Nobody in the 10th zone so far is sending toward that high ground. We still got 2 zones to go, so you cannot let up off the gas just yet.
I was gonna say, I don't think you could. They just have so much ammunition. That's one thing that's so underrated. It's one thing to get high ground. It's another thing to have the ammo to put that infinite amount of pressure down right now. And that's exactly what they're doing. So it's looking really good so far for Electro and Oak. It's really a matter of, do they want to win this game and how badly? As long as they don't make a mistake, this is theirs to clean up.
Got Jeff still alive, Prez by himself, Gary just does go down, Northern on the other side along with Caliper. They were so close to already qualifying and not having to be in this last and final game, but sometimes that's the way the cookie crumbles. Chaos and AIM go up, a worthwhile sacrifice here because they do get the knock onto one, trying to get the elimination onto the other, but Chaos Gaming, he's out of builds, not even a scrap. It's really all up to AIM to try to make the play. It's a lot of pressure for one person to try to overcome, but Electro is feeling that as well. With his teammate down, it's all up to him, and he gets the elimination onto AIM, but at what cost, Monster?
Look at the timing, and then he lands to get the finish, the siphon to keep him in the game, and that decision right there, no builds and a singular tick left on the fall damage there to keep him in the game was enough to go ahead and make the right move, and now he retreats right back up to the ultimate high ground to try to buy some room here. Electro is trying to put the prize in the bag and get out of this qualifier right here. He wants to go to finals.
This is it, though. The last and final moments. There are 2 solos running around this lobby and 2 full duos. Eulogy and Stiff are one of them. Pretty consistent throughout the tournament, only if it mattered. It's all about the win. Jeff as well. 10 eliminations for him and Boji, but with 1 build left, he's just lurking around, trying to go under the radar because Electro is continuously pointing out, and these are the 2 solos up above. The 2 duos are down below on the low ground. This is still anyone's game.
This could go either way. Electro still holding on to what little bit of high ground he's got. This is all the real estate that he needs here. Meanwhile, you have obviously Jeffrey just looking up, trying to see what he can do, but Jeff's got nothing. He ends up breaking it, and Electro once again hits the saving shotgun shot to stay in the game.
Oh, it looks like he's shockwaving out, though. He's looking like he's shockwaving out to try to go ahead and reach the mending machine. Does he have the time? Because he certainly has the gold. He touches it. He gets the first patch up. He's looking for the second patch up. I have never seen a pay-to-win situation possibly qualify them to the grand finals. Stiff knows what's going down, but he catches wind of the play just seconds too late. Electro V-bucks his way into the grand finals.
Gotta give him a round of applause. The quick thinking. He was so snappy. He made so many decisions with very little time in the same game. All in all, it was absolutely impressive. Jacob, this guy was firing on all cylinders, and you have to give credit to him there, Zeke.
I think I've just seen a string of events and commentary that is peak Fortnite. I have never seen a play. I'm in shock. I have never seen a play like, please production, get us those highlights as soon as possible. I've never seen one player be such a dominant force to drop down to one pump someone and then just zip on back, hide away, have what they need, pick those moments, Kelly, show up, knock on doors, punch boxes in, then dip on out, go straight back in the zone to, as Jacob said, to V-buck his situation, to pay to win his situation. Not actually, this is a joke. Oh my gosh, Kelly, that was the craziest thing. That's one of the craziest things I've ever seen in my entire life, period.
We said it at the start of the show. What is it that separates the Last Chance lobby from the Heats? And it is the desperation that our teams face. And you could see in those moments, Electro knew how desperate he was to get him and Highland that spot on the grand finals, the final spot of the day, of the entire major. And he did it in such a fashion. Vivid, I feel like the only time I have seen such awareness of the map and what they needed in that circumstance in something like a slurp rush, you know, where it's a smaller map, they know everything with the POI. So to know exactly where he needed to go in that moment, to have that clarity after being a solo player for so long, I love it. That's what I love to see.
We finally got to see what it takes to go ahead and solo clutch your way through a win, through the Last Chance lobby in order to get into the grand finals. Clutch shots, instant decision making on when to use the overdrive grenade into the storm. And I gotta tell you something, it couldn't have been any more perfect. If he got over to that many machine and a couple of those builds weren't edited the way that they were, he wouldn't have made it. He was down to like 20 HP. If he had to break through any of them with his pickaxe, I don't think there was enough time. It just ended up being so perfect. Great thinking there, on your toes, way to be. Definitely deserved.
Shout out to Jacob as well. The moment that it happened, Jacob was like, dude, I know what they are doing. Actually, can we see that just one more time from Electra's perspective? You guys just don't, like, if you're not privy to, like, or if you don't follow Fortnite, this is the LCL, okay? There's an unbelievable amount of stress in this situation. These players are trying to make some semblance of a plan, put it together, put the pieces together to make it to a finals this weekend. Electro just stunted on that entire lobby, okay? He drops down